Wine is a mocker, beer is a brawler, and whoever staggers because of them is not wise. Proverbs 21.
How long have we been rolling? Have we been rolling since we started this conversation?
No,
Or no?
15
Oh, okay.
seconds.
So how was your weekend?
My weekend was great. It
That's
was
good.
shat upon when I got home, but we'll get to that in a minute. Why is this leaking?
I don't know.
That's weird. I'm pouring a beer, folks. For those of you who are playing along at home. Weekend was fantastic. I think we made it to Ernie's 3 days. We did get there on Wednesday, and we're there, 4 hours. I think after about 2.5 hours, it seemed like that we'd been there like 5 hours, and Nolan's like, how long have we been here? I said, I don't know. And he goes, I think it's only been like 2.5 hours. I'm like, get the hell out of here. We've been at least here 4 hours. Then nope, we hadn't been there very long. But had a good time hanging out with people at the bar, bartender. She was fun. We showed up with our own homemade sandwiches because I was adamant, if we're going to go drink all afternoon, somebody's got to be responsible, make sure we eat before we start drinking. And I had a leftover meat and cheese for sandwiches that I knew was not going to be consumed while I was gone. So I was like, I'm just going to make sandwiches.
And you guys didn't stop at Dust Bowl on the way?
It was closed.
That's right. You guys went on a Wednesday.
It was closed, so we couldn't stop.
That's a bummer.
So we showed up with these sandwiches and ciabatta rolls and like a lot of meat. Like this was like an Arby's
sandwich. That's exactly what I was thinking.
It was an Arby's Italian sandwich. And the bartender was like, wow, you guys brought your own sandwiches and everything. And we're just like, yeah, Nolan's like, we drove up here 4 hours to just drink at Ernie's. And she's like, what? And there's dudes at the bar like turning their heads. Like, what are you guys, crazy? This is great, but 4 hours. And so Nolan just leaned over, yeah, we drove all the way up here. We're going to drink here for till the late afternoon. And then we're going to go to Russian River and then we're going to get a hotel. And she's like, okay. And then I told her, yeah, every time we come here, we make sure we stop at Ernie's now and blah, 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 blah. And then we lit it out that we were there for the race. So it was fun. Made it to Windsor, stopped at Moonlight, had a drink, bought a bunch of beer, drank most of it over the weekend. Well, we drank all the light stuff. I came home with, I think, I came home with 6 of the Deli by Dingy. But they had a spectacular amber lager.
That's what I heard.
And it was like 4.3%. I should have bought a lot more. I might still buy some and have it shipped. It was awesome. Anyway, stopped at Moonlight, saw our friend, damn it, forgot his name again. But our friendly bartender was there, reminded him who I was, and then right away he was like, oh yeah.
It's like 3 letters.
What? Yeah. It's not Joe, it's something else.
Mm-mm.
And then headed up to Windsor and checked in our hotel, which was unbelievably nice. Really nice Hampton Inn in Windsor. Ubered over to Russian River, which is basically like Dust Bowl. Annie right away was like, oh, I could hang out here all day. Like, you could easily hang out here all day. Eat inside, go outside, play the lawn games, just keep drinking. It was really nice. It's an interesting decor in there. It's almost like New England, I can't remember, but it's like that kind of style where they've got shiplap on the ceiling and on the walls and Cape Cod style. It's almost like a Cape Cod style place, at least in the room we were sitting in. Beer was great. Food was fantastic. And then from there, the weekend was great. Nice.
Nolan said that you guys were convinced that that's where we need to go now every year for the Pliny trip. He was.
Yes, but he also made it sound like it's not really that far. And it's still, he deludes himself. It's a hike, particularly when you're trying to get from here to there. It's late at night and we've been drinking and we've got things to do in the morning. So I could see though for next year's trip we do, or maybe we just go there to do Younger and we just stay there all day. But I could see we do Younger there, go do what we do in town, take a nap, and then go there. But I don't know. I could do going up there for all day.
I just was like, man, everybody's going to miss out on all the traditions that'll now no longer be traditions if we go there and having bagels in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice, but I think he forgets how far that is up there. It's a good, I mean, you start adding up what it is from Petaluma to Santa Rosa, then Santa Rosa to Windsor, you're now talking like 45 minutes of driving, depending on where you're staying. So,
Yeah.
But the one year we stayed kind of in between, it wasn't too bad. Like we just have to probably be strategic about where we stay.
For sure.
And then racing for the weekend was fantastic. SVG almost did another doubleheader, very close, exciting races. Made it to Ernie's 2 more times. The second time we went was after the Xfinity race on Saturday, and Kyle Busch's crew chief was there, Randall Burnett. He seemed like he'd had a few beers. He was quite chatty. He doesn't seem like the chatty type when he's on television. Maybe that's just the way he is when he's off the track, but he was regaling several individuals from the RCR Kyle Busch team, Chevy. So that was fun. What else? Our friend of the show, Andy, went to his first race, seemed to enjoy it. He was there all weekend. Looks like he's all in for more races. And I think same for some other friends of ours, Robert and his wife, Jennifer. They went up on Saturday and everybody loved it. They were buying gear and just, and I mean, I think a lot of people probably get tickets from people and go to races and then don't go back. But everybody I've taken to a race seems to be like, I mean, I know you're not like all in like Eric and Nolan are, but you get it now. It's like, yeah, I see why people like this.
Yeah, I see why people like it. I like going to help out. Like, that's mainly why I go when I'm able to go. But I enjoyed the trip. I enjoy the hangouts with everybody, that kind of thing. The Vegas trips are a little tougher. The weather is usually the brutal part in Vegas. And then also just like Vegas isn't my kind of town. I'm just like, yeah.
That's what was nice about Sonoma. It was, everyone was dreading it was going to be super hot. It wasn't. It was between 78 and about 82, 84. I mean, it was hotter when you're on the tarmac like we were all day Thursday.
Yeah.
It felt hotter down there, but it was enough that we had to take light jackets for morning and evening because the breeze picked up pretty good, but weather was perfect. So,
well, and once the Vegas trip started, we started going to the Abel Baker and stuff, I was like, oh, okay, this is a lot more like my speed kind of stuff, where it was like, okay, we can find a spot that we can go to. Because, I mean, there was that one year where it was like we couldn't find a place to eat. So, you guys went to Buffalo Wild Wings, but, we couldn't get the whole party in there. So, you guys were able to go in. We had to go to wherever the fuck we went to, Texas Roadhouse.
Yeah. Yeah, eating was a big problem for until really we found Abel Baker. And since then, there's been there's the last couple trips we've been on, it's come up like, should we go somewhere else? I was like, no, let's just drive the extra 15 minutes down because you're right on the north end of the downtown. So you don't really hit traffic. It's like, no, let's go down there. Parking's not going to be a problem, or it's a light problem. I know what the food is. The beer's cold and it's pretty good to very good. And I know what I'm getting.
I was like,
and I'm getting fantastic food.
Yeah, the food is fantastic. And also even if we were like, let's go somewhere else, I'd be like, okay, where else are we going on that same strip?
Correct.
That same area right there where it's like, there's a bunch of breweries down there.
There's a bunch of breweries. There's another one that was there was another one that was, I think it's called Las Vegas. I don't remember what it is, but I don't want to call it the wrong name. But it's on a corner with another brewery, and that one was featured in Bar Rescue during COVID because it was having a hard time. They had just opened for COVID, so Taffer was, I think he was going in specifically to Vegas to try to rescue places because I think he'd worked there, and then I think he's got a deal with UNLV with their hospitality degree, whatever that is, like culinary hospitality.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, fantastic trip. And then I came home, and on Tuesday I rear-ended somebody, and so that's no good. And I'm scared to death I hit them pretty good. It wasn't like a ding. I mean, the lady wasn't. I'm not going to go into details. Certainly not on a podcast. I'm scared to death they're going to tell me that it's a 2003. There's too much damage. We're just going to junk it. So I didn't know how much I was attached to that truck until that. So I've been kind of sick to my stomach all week since.
Yeah.
And I just feel bad about. I mean, again, I'm not going to go into any detail. It was clearly my fault under California law. I rear-ended the person, so there's not like I'm revealing anything. It was just like, just you rear-end somebody, you just feel like an idiot, even if there's exigent circumstances. So
yeah, yep.
Felt bad for her. I want to say this real quick, and then you can fill in, tell us about your weekend too. So, but this is kind of related to the show and ethics and Christianity. So she gets to the gas station before I do, because there was a train. She went ahead and the train zoomed by. So I was stuck on one side of the train. She was on the other side. Train crossing. And by the time I get there, she's already on the phone. She's called the cops, which I don't have a problem with. You don't necessarily have to call the cops, but that's certainly, it's not protocol. So, but as soon as she did, I was like, okay, well, then I'm not talking to you. I mean, I wasn't like rude, but she was like, she looked at me. I walked over there with my information. She said, so did you not see me? And I said, with all due respect, you called the cops. And so I'm just going to let them handle it. Like, I'm not going to have a conversation with you. And probably it's also because having been through my 4 or 5 year lawsuit, I'm now like very attentive to, I'm not saying anything that's going to be on the record and used against me in the future. So, and I didn't feel good about it, because it'd be much better to be like, how are you? I hope you're doing all right.
Yeah.
Is there anything that hurts? I apologize profusely. Like I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. I rear-ended her. So it's not like it's like, oh, no, who's at fault? But I don't know. And maybe you just have to tell yourself as a Christian, don't worry about being in a litigious society. Just be a human being, and let what come may come, let it happen. But I was kind of torn between like being charitable and really, but she also didn't seem to be all that interested either. But she was she was on the phone the entire time. But anyway, it just kind of occurred to me like, this is what sucks about having everyone being lawyered up and having insurance companies. It's just like, you can't really be like very human in a good sense. So anyway,
yep. That's how it goes.
It is what it is. So how are you?
I'm tired, but other than that, I'm good. I don't have any weekend updates for anybody. I was like, I didn't really do much over the weekend. I mean, I'm raising 2 kids. It's pretty much taking up all my time. I went to Irvine yesterday.
Yeah, why'd you guys go down there?
So I got okay. I was like, it's kind of a funny story. None of it really involves me it involves me, but I got a email from CUI, which is Concordia University, Irvine, which is where I'm getting my master's degree from. They had let me know that I had an F4 form that needed to be filled out, and it could either be filled out in front of a notary, and then I would mail all my shit in, or I could go down there and sign it in front of them in person. Those were my only 2 options. And if I didn't do that, then I was going to they were not going to give me financial aid.
And was there a deadline on this?
It was just a form that said that I am who I say I am. So I had to like show them my ID and like this whole thing. So they took a photocopy of my ID, and I have to fill out this form that says I am who this ID says I am. But they needed it wet, is the notary term for it. So those were my 2 options that I could do. And I'm wrapping up this set of classes next weekend. And I was like, this is really going to cut it close because my next set of classes start like the week after or whatever. And I was like, and who knows how long they're going to take to file the paperwork or whatever when they receive it and all that kind of stuff. So I was just like, and I was like, whatever. So I'm just going to go down there. I'll just make a day of it. I'll just drive down to Irvine, sign the fucking paper, and then come back. So I texted Alec. I asked Alec if he wanted to go with me, because Alec actually attended CUI. He just graduated with his master's from there. So I texted him and asked if he wanted to go. He wasn't able to go. So I was like, okay. I knew that you and Nolan had both just gotten back from a trip, and I was like, there's no fucking way those guys want to go on a 9-hour round trip to fucking Irvine and back. So I was like, okay. So I just hopped in the car. I was like, do. But I was like, oh, I'll do something fun. So I posted on my Instagram. I said, hey, going on a 9-hour road trip. I'll take in song requests. And so I posted that on my Instagram. And I was like, and I literally was like, I posted it. And as soon as I posted it, I was like, Nolan's going to call me. He's going to call me. But I was like, whatever. He'll call me later. And I was like, he'll probably get up around 10 and give me a call. So I go and I fill up at Flying J in Tulare. And then I head up down the road and I get to just the outskirts of Delano. And sure enough, Nolan gives me a phone call and he's like, where are you going? And I was like, I got to go to Irvine to get like a paper signed for school. And he's like, you want to ride along, buddy? And I was like, he's like, well, where are you? And I was like, Delano. And he's like, oh. He's like, well, if you pull over in Bakersfield, I'll like ride along with you or whatever. And I was like, I could just pull over in Delano if you want to just pull over in Delano.
Shopping center with the AMC theater or whatever.
Yeah, and that's where we pulled off. So I pulled off at that new shopping area in Delano, and Nolan met me there at Home Depot. It kind of worked out because I had to use the restroom. So I was like, all right. So Nolan showed up. If you don't know where Delano is from where it's about a half hour down the road. So Nolan showed up in about 25 minutes and we went down to Irvine. And here's all the information that I had to put down on that piece of paper. I had to give them my ID. I had to put my first name, my last name, my ID number for school, and then sign and date it. That was it.
Oh, come on.
I had to do that in front of the counselor. Like they had to call a counselor out to like come watch me do it. And that was it. That was the whole trip was for that. Now, in order for me to get away from my wife for the day, who's raising 2 children, I also promised her, I was like, hey, you know what? She really likes pin collecting at fucking Disneyland.
Oh, yeah, you've mentioned
It's
that.
that Midwest blood in her. It's a fucking spoon collection reincarnated as
those
a pin
Iowa
collection.
people.
Yeah, so I went down there and I was like, I'll pick you up some pins. So we went into fucking downtown Disney and Nolan requested we go to Ballast Point. So we went to Ballast Point. I was like, my plans for the day, again, I had no idea that Nolan was coming with me until I was half an hour down the road. I follow lots of foodies from Los Angeles, and they have places that they like to recommend and stuff like that. And so my plans was to go there that day. And I don't have a problem with going to Ballast Point either. But I was just like, oh, yeah, I'll go grab I'll go hit up one of these really cool spots in LA and then head home from there. I was figuring I was going to be home by like 4, but me and Nolan ended up spending an hour or two at Ballast Point, bought my wife some pins, went back into Ballast Point, had one more beer for the road. I didn't really drink that much.
Nolan did from the picture.
Oh, no. Those were all tasters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they only give you, they do it like Dust Bowl where they give you the tasters in the same glass that they do now don't get me wrong. They're like, this is 4 ounces. And you're like, the fuck that is 4 ounces. So what had happened was we had ordered a taster because I've always wanted to try the habanero sculpin. So we got that, which I highly recommend anybody try. I was like, give it a try. It doesn't taste like a pepper at all, which if I'm being honest, I don't really feel like habaneros have that much like flavor to them. Like a jalapeno has that bell pepper kind of thing, but habaneros really are focused on like heat. And so like the sculpin tastes exactly like a sculpin with just like warmth. Like that's all it is. It's just warm. Like it's cold, but it like the pepper warmth in your like throat. So I liked it. I don't know if I would drink more than 1 pint of it. We only had 4 ounces and I was like, I could drink a pint of this, but I wouldn't probably order more than that. I'd be like, yeah, that's enough for me. But then the guy was like, how'd you guys like it? And we're like, honestly, it was pretty good. And he's like, here, you want to try another one? So he gave us free tasters of a smoked jalapeno Pilsner. That one was not good for me. Nolan liked it. He was like, it tastes like a jalapeno popper. I don't want that in drink.
I don't need to be drinking that.
I don't want to, but it also had liquid smoke in it. So it was like, and that was the part that was the most off-putting for me, where I was just like,
You could tell it was liquid?
You could tell, like, it was the same thing as that smoked one from
Moonlight,
where it was like, they had definitely put liquid, unless they threw a cigarette in the batch or something. But I was like,
well, I thought Moonlight did that. I thought Moonlight smoked the barley is how they got it.
Oh, that might have been
the other way.
I was like, it could have been that, but it was very much that it was that smoke. It was just a little potent on that smoke flavor.
The whole smoking thing is just, it's too fraught with
I don't mind you being experimental or anything. I was like, yeah, it's fine.
No,
it's
no,
just
I don't
not
mean
me.
with you tasting it. I mean just brewing it.
Yeah, and so that was fine.
I think I've had that habanero from them, and I want to say Stone did a chili one a couple years ago. I've had two that I like. Definitely one was Ballast Point, unless it's this first year they've done it, but I'm pretty sure I know one of the big...
Oh, it's not the first year that they've done it.
Okay,
the habanero sculpin
I've
comes
definitely
around
had
summer.
that one, and I had the same thought you did. I was like, I could drink a glass of this, but I wouldn't buy it in cans or anything.
Nah.
I'd only drink it on tap at the place and have one of it. And even then, it might be like not a full pint, but an 8-ouncer. But I appreciated it compared to what one of our local breweries does and other places I've tasted where it's just like, no. I don't need it tasting like this. It needs, like you said, like it's a little bit of heat, a little bit of...
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like it has no pepper. Like it doesn't taste like you're having like a pepper in there. Like when you add stuff to beers, they're called adjuncts, and you usually taste that adjunct. I don't taste habanero.
Yeah.
I just you taste normal sculpin, and there's just like heat.
It's kind of like when you cook, and if you use enough black pepper, you don't actually taste the black pepper. You've now descended into, ooh, that's hot. And yes, exactly. You use enough black pepper.
Yeah.
It does have heat. It is a pepper like the red and green things that you eat. So
yeah, so we went there, we had those two. I tried a really good double IPA that they have. I just got an 8-ounce pour of it. They had it's called like the Stingray or something, or the Manta Ray. Delicious.
You can get that every once in a while in cans.
It's apparently a gold medal winner.
Yeah.
It's super great. I was like, oh, that's really good. And then I think that's all I got when we were there the first time. Nolan tried like a lager and a Pilsner. And then when we came back, he tried like a juicy double IPA. I got the Imperial Sculpin, again in an 8-ounce pour. But it was all good. So all those were really, really tasty. Got my wife some pin sets. But would you like to take a guess? Okay, wait, hold up. I had Nolan do this, and for everybody listening, this isn't like a flex or anything. I just would like for you to know how much pins cost from Disney, because I don't think people know. So here's what I bought my wife. I bought 2 packs that have their mystery pin sets. So it's like gambling. So I bought 2 packs with 2 pins in it. I bought 3 packs with 3 pins in it. And then I bought this like specialty. Well, let's just forget the specialty thing for the time.
Yeah, this is like buying. Does bubble gum come with it? It's like buying trading cards.
Yeah, it's like buying trading cards. So you get total. What I bought was 2 pins, so 4, and then 3 sets of. Oh, they came with 5 pins, not 3 pins. So it's 3 sets of 5 pins. So 5 pin, 5 pin, 5 pin, and 2 sets of 2 pins. How much do you think that cost?
Total?
Yeah.
$350.
Oh, no, it wasn't that much. So at least you're thinking that. That was like, I was not anticipating that it was going to be $200 when I went, and I was like, for pins? Like,
well,
my wife loves them.
Things you do for the mother of your children.
Well, here's the thing is that, okay, so my wife, when she buys them, she's sneaky about it. So she doesn't buy it just like, she'll just be like, okay, I'm just going to buy like 2 boxes. So she'll buy 2 boxes.
Sneaky about it.
She's sneaky about it. So she'll buy 2 boxes. So if we go to Disneyland, which we don't go, we've been like twice over the past 2 years. And then before that, it was like 8 years before that we went. We went last year, and this is how my wife would do it. And I never even checked the bank account. Like, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Plus, also, I wasn't thinking they were that expensive. So my wife would buy like 2 boxes. She'd open them and be like, oh man, I got like a duplicate or something, right? 2 hours later, she's buying another 2 boxes. Another 2 hours later, I'm like, she's buying another 2 boxes. She's just like, oh yeah, I saw it in this shop or whatever. And like, I just wanted to try and get the other whatever, blah, blah, blah. So like, I had no idea that we were racking it up. Like, I was like, what the fuck? Now I know. I actually paid the bill for some of these. And I'm like, holy fuck. This is a lot for just colored metal.
Well, now you don't feel so guilty about your beer expenses. So
yeah. Well, and then I bought her a specialty. So it's the 70th anniversary of Disneyland this year. What they have is they have these keys They're these big keys, and what they are, they're like a scavenger hunt that you're able to go around the Disneyland park with. And you go and you put it in the slot, and there's one slot for you to put the key in every single land in Disneyland. So there's one in Main Street, there's one in Tomorrowland, there's one in Fantasyland, there's one in whatever. There's some like around the Jungle Cruise, there's some around Critter, whatever, Star Wars Land, blah, blah, blah. So you go and you put your key in all of these places. And then once you put it into the final location, which is up near like the entry to the park, it opens a slot and you get a single pin from it. But it's a highly collectible pin. It's the whatever. So I was like, and my wife was talking about it and I knew that she wanted one, but she was like, no, I'm not going to buy one. Like blah, blah, blah. I was like, whatever, I'm going to buy you a fucking pin or one of these pin keys. And then we'll go. That was $60 for the one pin. But the scavenger hunt around Disneyland, I guess, is what it counts for. So $260 in pins yesterday. And
wow.
then a nice 5-hour drive home because Noel and I spent too much time in downtown Disney, which all we did was go to the pin shop and go to the fucking brewery, but too much time because then it was 5 hours getting home from Los Angeles. So.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we left at like 3:15, and I think I got home at 8:15. So I was like, all right, well, I asked for this, I guess. So, but we made it, signed my paper, we're good to go. That was my day yesterday. So I'm pretty tired. Even though it's just driving, like everybody on this podcast should know that just like driving takes things out of you that you're just like, I don't understand how that takes things out of me, but it's just that focused. And especially when you're driving in traffic all the time, you're just like, you're staying focused the entire time. Like I never felt tired while driving because you're just like, oh yeah, I got to pay attention. So
I felt tired when we got home and I didn't drive. Nolan drove. So, but even then I got home, I was like, I'm poof.
I thought Chris drove.
Well, no. Nolan drove Andy and me and himself. Chris drove up the next day, stayed at the house and then drove up. And then the two of us, the 2 cars caravan back together because Chris was not going to drive the full 8.5 hours.
Yeah.
Plus, he would have been driving through lots of really bad traffic on his way back.
Yeah.
So, first beer of the week.
Here, drinking beer, talking guys, killing time, living life.
We are drinking the West Pacific Pilsner. Shout out to Chris for getting it for us. It is a brewery exclusive from Stone. It's a supremely refreshadelic Pilsner coming in at 4.9% alcohol by volume. I'm not a huge fan.
You don't like this?
It's okay.
Oh, I find it crushable.
I shouldn't say like, when I say I'm not a huge fan, I'm just like, meh. I mean, it's fine.
I like it. I had a prologue before we started because I was waiting for Colton to get here. I had the 21st Amendment Brewery Amendment Lager, 4.4%. We got it when we were up on the trip this weekend because we drank a lot of the beer that we drank. So we started buying beer, and this was one that we found at the Safeway, I think, by where we were staying. So, in fact, we ended up buying 2 12-packs of this.
I think I just have to be honest about when it comes to Pilsners. I don't like the floral aspect of them. So like, it's not my favorite beer style. I have no problem drinking them. If you say that they're crushable, that absolutely makes sense to me. They're very light. They leave the palate really well. But as far as like the flavor, I'm just like, it's just not what I'm necessarily wanting in a beer, but I can appreciate it. This one is actually very hop forward, which it leans into the nice West Coast aspect. So they did a good job, I'm assuming, dry hopping on this to bring out such hoppy flavors in the pills. So
it's an interesting label. I don't know what the significance of these cartoons are. Oh, it's palm trees and pizza and
skating.
Oh, these are all the some of it's the ingredients. There's oranges or nectarines or something and hops and some kind of flour. Okay, well, that makes sense. It looks like a purple banana. I don't know what that's all about.
I don't know, fruitier and brighter than a Pilsner and smooth as a block of ice. It's so easy drinking, you'd hardly believe it was packed with prodigious amounts of Simcoe. Peacherine, Vista, and Eldorado hops.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually good when you and I don't agree on everything, so people don't get them. There are actually differences of opinion. This is delicious. I regret not buying more of it. So
I don't have a problem with you saying that. Again,
I don't have a problem with you not. So
good. Glad that's
and more for me and Nolan. I guess I don't know if there's going to be much of a discussion, but when we were up on our younger trip, we've mentioned before there's a used bookstore, and I bought a copy of Annals and Histories by Tacitus, who was a Roman senator around the time of Nero. Well, when he lived, it included Nero. He was a Roman senator. He was a friend to Pliny the Younger, but he took copious notes, contemporaneous notes, and then basically wrote a comprehensive history of Rome at the time, and he's been widely read. If you were educated around the time of the Revolution, it was expected you knew Tacitus. John Adams was famous for quoting Tacitus all the time. So he's a historian, and then also someone who just he doesn't just give facts. He also editorializes. Even though he lived through Nero, he didn't have a lot of nice things to say about him and other Roman emperors around the time. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is I've been reading it, and there is a little thing in here about the Christians and Nero. So I wanted to read it just so, we want to talk a lot about the Bible, and we have some kind of general understanding about Christian history and whatnot. But I think it's interesting to read what Tacitus has in his book about Christians at the time, and he doesn't have anything nice to say about them, just to let you know. But I think it's important for everybody to kind of hear this couple paragraphs to understand that Christians did exist. I've said before, the argument that people don't die for a lie is stupid. People die for a lie all the time. But there were a group of people who were willing to die. They were willing to live differently than what how the Roman Empire wanted them to live, and they were outsiders for sure, and at various times were persecuted by Roman officials. So this is a period right after Rome's had a massive fire that's burned quite a bit of Rome, and they're trying to find blame and all kinds of stuff. And so Nero's the emperor at the time, and Tacitus writes, "But all human efforts, all the lavish gifts of the emperor, and the propitiations of the gods did not banish the sinister belief that the conflagration was the result of an order." So they're blaming the Christians for the fire. "Consequently, to get rid of the report, Nero fastened the guilt and inflicted the most exquisite tortures on a class hated for their abominations, called Christians by the populace. Christus, whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilate, suited the taste of that numerous class who, when the attractions of vice are so powerful, do not wish for strictness or special severity on the throne. The origin of the conspiracy was not in Piso's personal ambition, but I could not easily narrate who first planned it or whose prompting inspired a scheme which so many entered. That the leading spirits were Subrius Flavus, tribune of Proator cohort, and Sulpicius Asper, a centurion, was proved by the fearlessness of their death. Lucius Annius too, and blah, 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 blah. So when they dropped hints among themselves or among their friends about the emperor's crimes and approaching the end of the state, where are we going to get to the part where they persecutes them? Christus, for whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilate, and a most mischievous superstition, thus checked for the moment, again broke out not only in Judea, the first source of the evil, but in Rome, where all things hideous and shameful from every part of the world find their center and become popular. Accordingly, an arrest was first made of all who pleaded guilty. Then, upon their information, notice that they pleaded guilty. They didn't plead innocent. They actually just pled guilty. It's not something we do today. Accordingly, an arrest was first made of all who pleaded guilty, and then, upon their information, an immense multitude was convicted, not so much of the crime of firing the city. Again, they're blaming the burning of Rome on the Christians, as of hatred against mankind. Mockery of every sort was added to their deaths. Covered with the skins of beasts, they were torn by dogs and perished, or were nailed to crosses, or were doomed to the flames and burnt to serve as nightly illumination when daylight had expired. Nero offered his gardens for the spectacle and was exhibiting a show in the circus, while he mingled with the people in dress of a charioteer or stood aloft on a car. Hence, even for criminals who deserved extreme and exemplary punishment, there arose a feeling of compassion, for it was not, as it seemed, for the good of the public, but to glut one man's cruelty, that they were being destroyed. So, it's a footnote, as they say in history, but I think it's important right there. Even Tacitus himself doesn't have a good view of Christians, but he's mentioning right there that they're being burned alive, used as human candles. This isn't some myth that just popped up out of nowhere that built up over centuries. They're being fed to dogs. They're being nailed to crosses, which, that didn't originate with Jesus. It preceded him, but those were things that happened that people like Nero and other not all Roman emperors did that, but Nero certainly was one who did, because he was mad and absolutely depraved. Caligula was another one who was even worse in a lot of ways. But so anyway, just an interesting footnote. I think it's good to know that, yes, the persecution of Christians did happen. Christianity was a thing that broke out. Even Tacitus says it. It had extended to Rome. So, footnotes of history with the Go to Hell podcast.
Yeah. Oh, this is a nice light, very much Sonoma County tasting beer. Where is this from?
Rohnert Park.
Oh yeah, we've had them before.
Have we?
Yes, because I remember this logo, and I was like, oh yeah.
So we bought those cans before? I didn't remember it.
No, I don't think
Nolan said something. Oh, I think Nolan said they are good, or
I don't know if we bought
great things about.
I don't know if
something.
we've had this beer before from them, but I
don't remember Old Kaz, but I'm sure we have.
I know that we've had the Rohnert Park Brewing or whatever. So really good. Yep, tastes like a Sonoma County beer. All right, on to our main topics for the evening, I think.
All right. I have 3 possible topics. I'm not sure we want to get to all 3 of them.
And we could get.
I sent you 3 articles. Is there anything in particular you're looking to talk about? One I kind of feel icky about, but I think we need to talk about.
The Israel and the Syria one.
That one we definitely need to talk about. But one, it kind of keeps us in the what we have been talking about. But I'm going to take it from a different perspective.
Well, I don't have too many thoughts on it. I just have I don't know. I have a thought on it, but to which we can, we might as well just dive into it right now.
Yeah, we'll do the first one. New wave of violence against Christian communities in Syria. There was another article that I'd seen in Christianity Today, but it was behind the paywall. I don't pay for Christianity Today. But basically, since the beginning of the Civil War, but in particular, since the conclusion of the Civil War and some sort of ISIS, Al-Qaeda-like group has taken over the country, there has been a concerted effort to persecute Christians. A Maronite church, which is, I believe Maronite is somewhere like, this is kind of like Greek Orthodox adjacent. It's Greek Orthodox, Roman Catholic adjacent, I believe, but more Arab in its flavor. I think that's what it is. That got firebombed. There was an Orthodox church in the Christian neighborhood of Damascus that got firebombed. At least 30 people were killed, 54 were injured. there was a Christian neighborhood that got attacked, and I think it said 30 homes were destroyed. People were killed. Everyone was displaced from their house. There's been attempted suicide bombings. There's been actual suicide bombings that have been pulled off. There's been people showing up and just shooting up Christians. So Christians are definitely being persecuted. Now, my issue is why, if we live, I don't subscribe to this, but I am calling for consistency, and if we're going to prioritize, because I think as much as everyone would like to make everything a priority, by definition, we have to make priorities. We have limited resources, whether it be time, money, etc. If this country is going to make a group of people a priority in the Middle East, why are Christians not being prioritized? And I'm not just talking the government of the United States. I don't hear the church talking about it. Why is Israel being talked about as this paramount thing that we have to defend and worry about the plight of the Israelis and not the plight of Christians who've lived in this country for 2,000 years? And we just like, whatever. If we're going to make a priority, then let's have a little more. If we're going to prioritize, and we're going to prioritize somewhat based on clan, why aren't we worried about ourselves?
I get where you're coming from.
I'm not saying we should.
No, I'm not saying you.
I'm just calling out the hypocrisy of it.
I know exactly where you're coming from. As soon as you explained it, I was like, all right. I was like, what I have to say about it is going to be like, you're going to agree with. It's going to be contradictory to what you're saying, just because it's not contradictory to what you're saying, because you're going to be like, well, we have to prioritize, which is what you specified, and that's what you said. And I do believe, I quote Martin Luther King Jr. when I say injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a and so if an injustice is being done somewhere in this world, it should make every single one of us sick to our stomachs. So if you are seeing something unjust occur anywhere in the world, anywhere in the United States, anywhere else, then it should make you sick to your stomach, and you should be upset about it. You should not be emotionally numb to it and just be like, well, they deserved it, or this is, how it should be, or blah, blah, blah. That's just how the world goes, or whatever. No, like, it should make you upset.
So at the very least, this is going to sound flippant, but I think Christians, I'm hoping everybody who listens to this know that's not flippant. It's actually genuine. At the very least, it should be, they're now on my list of things to pray for, like genuinely pray for.
Yeah,
I don't think that's casual or flippant, but now it's on my list of things that I'm going to pray about every day. Of like, I found out that something's going on with this group of people. I pray for them.
Yeah, I mean, and there are probably people that are super active that are like, well, you don't know, or you're not praying about all those Christians in China, or all those Christians in this place or whatever. And actually, I'm not even saying about Christians. For me personally, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And so, like, again, if there is an injustice that is happening to any person out there, I think we should all be appalled, and we should all be upset, and we should all want change and hope for change and pray that God finds a way into that place. And for those of you that may sit there and you're listening to this and you're like, well, this is how God finds a way into this place, is through hellfire and brimstone from the United States. Amen, brother. I hope that that's not the way that we find a way into those, that God finds a way into those places. I hope that God finds a way into those places in the same way that we talked about it on our last podcast, where we talked about how we as Americans are uninvolved when it comes to foreign missions and when it comes to relations in that kind of regard, where it's like, we can assist you and we want to help you, but we want you guys to be the ones that want the change for yourself. And I hope that we continue to pray that we find solutions. And this is and for those of you that are tired of prayer, and I get it, you're people of action, which I don't have a problem with people of action. You get shit done. But right now, what we have done is we've identified a problem. And it's a problem that's happening again and again and again around the world. But we have identified a problem, and there's not an easy solution. Where every solution or every thing that we choose to react to these situations has a consequence to those actions. It's either going to take a large amount of time, or you could get an immediate gratification solution that has lasting damages that can't be brought back. That cycle of hatred that we've talked about over and over and over again. And for me, again, I don't necessarily feel that way because for me, I want us to eliminate tribalism. And I know that you're talking about priorities, and so that's what I get from it. But I would like to push, and I hope that Christians someday are no longer just concerned about, because that's actually the thing that's getting irritating to me. And I get where you're coming from, because it's irritating too, where it's, we have to defend Israel. We got to defend these Christians in Syria. And I'm like, let's go defend somebody who's defenseless, who has nothing to do with us whatsoever, because that's still what we're called to do. Because every single person on this planet is our neighbor. And so, and I mean, like, I'm not, and I get the priority, and it's going to take a while to be there, but also we need to recognize that as Christians, every single person on this planet, Jesus died on the cross for. And so therefore, let's care about, and I don't mind hearing about this or hearing about what's going on in Israel, but there's so much defense for this, defense for that, and yet there's a fucking warlords that are running countries and killing countless people, whether they're Christian or not. I was like, in like Hindu countries, they're out there fucking killing everybody from this tribe or that tribe or whatever. I was like, and we're just okay with that, or we're just indifferent, which that's the perils of indifference, right? Like and what do? So it's a lot more loaded than just going out and carpet bombing or getting people out or whatever.
No, I think you and I would agree that U.S. military can't solve those issues.
No. And I hope more people start to agree with that.
Well, that's what I find so galling about this. I'm not saying that it's got to be Israel or Christians.
No, you're not saying that. You're just like, why are we more upset about this?
Why are we more upset?
It's more disassociated, but it's the Holy Land. It's the I'm sorry. I still think,
I know the answer. I actually know the answer to the question, but I haven't said it.
I just feel like we still have, like, there is crusader in us. Like, we have this like crusader mentality in our bodies that is just like, we got to defend this place. And I feel like Jesus was very clear that I'm not in this place anymore. I'm in you.
This goes back to the Ted Cruz having a Sunday, like, self-admitting, like, that was what was so galling about Ted Cruz. Like, I learned in Sunday school. Yeah.
Thank you.
I was talking to my mom about this today. Like, to say out loud that I learned in Sunday school X, Y, and Z is just,
some 65-year-old grandma who had been in a Reformed church for all of her life.
Well, one
was teaching me.
My concern is, sorry to throw shade at people, and we've probably, I don't know, we've been doing this long enough. I can't remember everything we've discussed. I'm sure we've mentioned on here. Too many Christians, even people who go to church every Sunday and are in Bible studies, still have basically a Sunday school understanding of certainly the Old Testament, if not the Bible.
Which actually, and I want to say it on the podcast, which I think I've said it a couple of times already, but I do want to say right now, that's okay. It's
okay if you're not tying it to your foreign policy.
Yeah. If you're using it to sit there and say, Jesus loved others, and so therefore I must love others.
Right. What I did tell my mom, though, was, why is it in Sunday school we teach the flood, We teach Samson and Delilah. Like, these aren't really kid concepts, but we teach them in this way that I think actually isn't the point of those stories.
Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, I think, is a good one for kids.
Jonah getting swallowed by the whale.
Jonah's a little weird, but even Joshua and the
David
Philistines.
And Bathsheba.
Joshua and the Philistines is we march around 7 times and yell, and then
kill every person
kill
in
everyone.
the city.
So and then we wonder why our Christians grow up and be like, God wants us to kill people, the bad people. It's like, yeah, because they learned it in Sunday school and they were never told any different.
I'm just letting you know. I don't know if you've seen the VeggieTale version, but it's historically accurate. They were a bunch of French dudes up there, which is so great. Nobody understands. Well, the well-versed know that that's a Monty Python.
It's a Monty Python thing.
It's so fucking funny.
I don't know. Is there more than one dude? Is it one dude who's behind VeggieTales, or is it more than one dude?
There's a couple of guys. Like
one of the guys from VeggieTales, right, for the last couple months, and I don't agree with everything he says, but I take great pleasure in it. He has been really just trolling Christians and MAGA people on Twitter. And so many people are so disappointed to find out that he's like this appearing to be progressive Christian. It's like, come on, folks, get over here. Like, who did you think was doing this? Of course it was, it's not like...
He's an animator.
Yeah,
like come on. Want from?
Like, he's an artist. So anyway, if we're going to have... I think, look, the reason why so many people are animated by Israel is because of dispensationalism. The Ted Cruz, Old Testament Sunday school view of Israel, and also dispensationalism. And there's just like, I mean, it's not. I don't think people are wishing the end of the world, but like, we have to protect Israel because that's the only way Jesus is going to come back, according to Revelation in the book of Daniel. Which is just dumb. Meanwhile, in the border over, you have a country that was wrecked by the United States. Not 100%, but in large part. Turkey, Russia, yes. The United States, Israel, Iran, all decided one day to play toy soldier and wreck a fucking country called Syria. And now it's the devil's playpen, and we're like, yeah, whatever, it's not my problem. We're going to make nice with the people that we declared war on September 12th, 2001. It's all over, and well, yeah, whatever, and we got other fish to fry, and those Christians can just, like, whatever. I'm sorry. I use the Colin Powell rule, which is you broke it, you fix it. At the very least, if you're going to go in there and break it, go in there and protect the Christians. I don't mean by using the military. Just tell the new government, tell your people to lay off.
And
do something.
Well, wait, and I do want to clarify what Tim is saying is that it was the people with the dispensationalists and the Ted Cruzes of the United States, which makes up the majority of those of you that are sitting there and fighting for Israel.
Correct.
Right
That's
now.
Most of the Israel support for
So he's saying
Christianity.
You people need to be if you're going to be all uppity about this, you need to protect these people that you were all like, whatever, this is your, like, if you're going to do this, and that's what he's saying. He's not saying that like the United States government needs to go and get Christians out. Like because I mean, he may be saying that, but he's saying that through those people that made that power come up. I feel like that.
Well,
I know, but I'm just saying, like, you were like, okay, the U.S. made a mess, and it's like, well, the U.S. made a mess, but then who were the people that made that mess? And you would say that the majority of those people were made up by these dispensationalists or these Ted Cruz.
Well, I don't think the dispensationalists made the mess. The CIA and the nut jobs in our federal government decided to blow up Syria. They're responsible for that.
But here's the hard part. I mean,
my point with the dispensationalists is that's why their emphasis is on Israel and not Christians who are suffering in Lebanon and Jordan and.
Well, and the hard part
Syria.
And my argument would just be, as far as if you're going to make the country, if you're going to say that the United States needs to get involved, and the hard part is, I mean, you're sitting there and saying that they made their mess and so they need to clean it up. But the hard part is if you're sitting there and saying they have to take the Christians out of there, again, why are they just evacuating Christians?
I'm not prescribing what should be done. I'm just saying
Yeah.
we've spent the last 6 weeks arguing about Iran and Israel and how Israel's the most important thing. And I agree. I don't want us to be tribal, but I also do think at one level, I don't think it's unchristian. I think it's okay in this broken world with Jesus for Christians to care about ourselves first.
I'm not saying that it's necessarily something for us first, where it's, I mean, you see someone that you can relate to, somebody that you see I would also say that, I mean, you're seeing somebody that's a part of your tribe.
Yeah.
Hurting. That's somebody that's in some extent, some part of your family. And merely what I'm saying is that I hope that at some point in the world,
absolutely,
we view everybody that way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know.
Because actually what I'm saying is that I get where, and I don't have a problem with people being upset that Christians are being persecuted elsewhere around the world. It's just, they want to protect their own and they want to do this or whatever. And again, it's when they start separating, that's when it becomes more of, I don't mind you getting upset about Christians. And even if you want to get more upset about Christians dying elsewhere in the world, that's fine with me. But also if they're Islamic and they're dying unjustly somewhere else in the world, then you need to be upset about that too. That should be something that breaks your heart as well.
Yeah, when it comes to war, I think that's where we get in trouble, where the Christians are getting killed. Like, well, a lot of people are getting killed. I understand when there's a group of Christians in a country that's hostile to Christians because it's communist or Muslim or whatever, and all they're doing is being persecuted because they're Christian or they're open about their faith. And it's like, all right, we definitely we need to all rally around them, pray for them, try to smuggle support
100%. There are people that should be upset.
They're just being Christians and they're being persecuted.
Well, I'm going to use an example. We should be upset by the Muslims being persecuted in India. You should be offended by that. You should be offended by, what is it, in Tibet? Yeah. That the Hindus or the Buddhists are being persecuted there.
Yeah.
And killed. That should offend you to your core as Christians. And because they're humans. Because they are people that Jesus died on the cross for. And people are taking their lives before it is their time. And that's atrocious. That's horrific. And that should be stopped immediately.
Well, I think that's, not to beat a dead horse. I think that's why we spent the last 6 months spending so much time on
Gaza,
government violence.
Right, yeah.
Because it just seems to be so, it's like scotch taped together and it's slapdash. And it's just, at the end of the day, it's just not a way. It's better to be, I think, I would prefer our country, and I think I know a lot of people who believe this. I know people intimately in our friend group who believe this, and God bless them. But I just don't. I think it's a religious view we've taken, so to speak, of we have to be powerful and use our military and protect ourselves in order to protect this economy we have and this way of life, and just putting aside the Christian aspect of that shouldn't be our priority. It's just, I don't even believe that. America was prosperous before we were the world superpower. We were very prosperous in the late 1800s after the Civil War. We were very prosperous up and through World War I and into World War II. And yes, we've had a lot of prosperity since, but I don't think we have to be going around blowing stuff up and telling nations what to do and invading them in order to maintain that. I would much rather be a country that is, as George Washington said his farewell address, I would rather be the country that is friend to all and enemy to none, but also ally to none. We're here. We exist.
You want to be Switzerland.
We're staying out of it.
Yep.
And when you two are fighting, I'm not going to stick my nose into it. and I'll be here, but I'll be here when you're willing, when somebody wins.
George Washington said that? Is that what you said?
Yeah, he said that in his farewell address. He was he basically, and look, it's, when he says it, it's 1780.
Well, I mean,
1790, whatever. And the world's changed. We don't have two oceans that are protecting us the way they used to. But I still say, like, we don't need to be in foreign entanglements in order to be.
Actually, I think that my argument that I was going to push back on you is, and it's not even one that I push back on you. You know what we've talked about on this show before is that the Americans are hardy. We're a hard nation. We're a nation that was built on the backbone of violence. Like, whether we like it or not, it's a conquered nation.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, that is a good point, because I was watching a guy today on Tucker Carlson's show. His name is Braxton McCoy. He's either Mormon or he grew up Mormon. He's a cowboy. I guess he got popular in the last couple months. He was fighting he led a group to stop the sale of federal land to private interests. He's like, no. And he's not a lefty. He's a cowboy. Like, his day job is a cowboy.
Yeah.
But he was like, no. This is not a problem. We need to do what we were doing for a long time, which until the right and the left blew it up, which was the left of, we can't touch federal land, and the right was, we'll just sell it to private parties. No, we let people lease the land, and they manage it. They keep the forests from burning down. They keep the land managed for cattle. Anyway, I'm getting off topic, but he made the point of, there's always been two Americas, and that the America of the Revolution was a very particular New England America. And most people don't know. I mean, we didn't have modern polling at the time of the Revolution, but it's pretty much understood with historians. About 25% of the colonies was for revolution.
Yeah.
About half didn't give a damn, and the other quarter, it was 25 and half.
Yeah. The other half was just trying to fucking survive.
Just stay out of the way, which is the way most civil wars do. Most civil wars, it doesn't like 50% go over. It's usually a minority, but it's a powerful minority fighting another powerful minority. Anyway, his point was that northeastern Yankee colonies, America, was different than the one that then pushed out into the Ohio Valley and then to the Rockies and then to the West. He goes, that was a different America, because they were in it. They were fighting Indians, or they were just fighting the elements, or they were fighting themselves. It was a harsh world that they were living in, and that world was much different even than people who lived in Boston and New York and Philadelphia and Charleston, South Carolina. And so,
yep, we are a country that has had to fight to survive. We have it. I mean, there are lots of countries that have had to do that over the years.
Very few countries, though, have conquered a continent, or most of a continent like we have, though.
Right. And have done it. Well, I mean, Spanish fucking did it for all of South America, which
yes, they did. Sorry.
That's a fucking continent.
A continent and a half.
Yeah, holy hell. Hey, cheers to the Spanish. Hold on.
Conquered Florida too.
The Brits showed up around here and they were like, nah, fuck that. We're taking the northern areas and that's it.
You can take Florida. We'll give you Texas.
But the recency of that conquering and that violence is still very much in our DNA. Like that, and that, I mean, that manifest destiny. I don't know a more iconic piece of American, it's not literature, but American, I don't know, writing that captures the heart and soul of something that drives the backbone of American, foreign policy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's just, and so there's just something behind Americans. It's that hero complex. It's that, and golly, I'm somebody who grew up and idolized heroes and who wanted to be a hero and that kind of thing. It's just the concept of what does a hero look like needs to change. We just have to shift that paradigm of it's somebody who comes in and saves the day, but it's the first responder. It's the person that comes in and cares for somebody.
I think the problem is I think you and I in particular are straddling two worlds. And it's two worlds in some ways that we are comfortable in. And most people straddle, I think, one world. And I'm not saying this to make you and I better than anybody else.
I didn't think you were.
In fact, yeah. But just for our listeners, I'm not saying like we're great and so this is why you need to listen to the show. No. There is a fallen world that exists. And it's not just going to go away because we wish Jesus to solve it. And if we just were all like Christians, you and I both get that. And there do need to be people like American Sniper dude who understands there's sheep and there's wolves. And sometimes you have to have a good wolf to protect the sheep. I understand that, which is why even though I do not like the use of military force by the United States government, I still respect the hell out of people who serve in the military and do day-to-day go, and I think in a lot of times do through the U.S. military save people, bring goodness to where there isn't any goodness, whether it be water and food and people not being raped, women not being raped, and those things exist. I don't like hunting. I don't mind firing guns. I have no interest in killing animals. I think you're better at that than I am. I don't even generally don't even kill bugs around my house. I don't like killing anything. But I know I live in a world where we have to kill things to eat. And even though most of us now live in cities and urban areas, even in the United States, there's a lot of rural areas where animals and critters can kill you and you have to be able to kill them. And so we need people who can do that.
I still view, for those of you that enjoy hunting or whatever.
I don't have a problem with hunting. That's my personal view.
I don't think you do.
And I wish I didn't have it because I have this fear that one day the world will end and then my family will be like, all right, we got to eat. And I'm like, well, I guess we're shit out of luck because I'm not killing anything. Hope everyone prepped for their pre-made packaged food.
Tim's been hanging out with our friend of the show, although I don't think he's ever listened to a single episode, but friend of ours, Nick, a little too much. Our Boogaloo boys out there, a little too much. It's been staying a little too late on Kauai Fridays, I guess. I actually don't have a problem with hunting or whatever. I do believe in things fairly similar to. I know this seems dumb. Well, I don't think anybody would say it's dumb. You're just like, oh yeah, you get your hunting philosophy from a Disney movie, and I'll be like, no, it's easy because everybody's seen the fucking Lion King. So, but there is an element behind Mufasa talks to Simba about, the threat and the reason why the Pride lands or whatever that Simba lives in gets overrun, or why when he leaves and Mufasa dies, why everything turns to crap or whatever, is because the hyenas overhunt. And and for those of you that aren't paying attention and are just like, oh yeah, this kid's movie, he's actually talking about people over consuming and doing, and you have this desolate, ugly place which used to have beauty and that kind of stuff. There's actually a conservationist message that's being presented. And so when it comes to hunting, I also believe in conservation. And so always being grateful for the animals, for the life that they lived. I very much also lean into kind of similar to how the Native Americans view hunting, where we are very grateful for the life of the animal and what it has meant and what it will mean to us, which means food, survival, that kind of stuff. And even now, we don't consume the things that we hunt as well as the Native Americans, so I don't want to put us on that level. So like if you ever go deer hunting or whatever, some of you are really good at that, but that's a very, very small percentage. But for those of you get the part of the meat that you want, you have your head for the mantle or whatever, but you're not using the full hide, you're not using all of the bones for different things and all that kind of stuff, which again, I will say that the Native Americans and a lot of indigenous tribes around the world have lots of respect for hunting and for animals and their life and the life that they gave, and making sure that their body does not go to waste. And so when it comes to hunting, I view that, and that's how I view it, as something fairly similar. Now, I'm not as, I don't do the whole thing, but it's like, but I am very grateful for the life of the animal and what it does to provide for us and for us to consume. So
I wonder what the percentage of hunters fall in that. I know there's plenty of dipshits who just go out and drink beer and don't give a damn, but I tend to think, I would like to think that hunters are more, they're not that caricature, and they're more like, well, I think even your average urban person doesn't know even how a farmer interacts with the earth. They just think it's like, oh, they just do whatever they got to do to grow stuff. No, actually, they respect earth and ground and all that, the environment, more than you do, because they have to interact with it and rely on it on
100%.
a daily,
now,
monthly, weekly.
There are corporate farmers that are sons of sons that inherited and they don't give a damn or whatever. I will admit that exists out there, but they don't make up. They don't make up the majority.
Yeah, they don't make up the majority. And I think a lot of hunters, this is similar. Yeah, there's a lot of dumbasses who go out and they're just looking to kill stuff and be dumbasses. But I think the majority of hunters have varying degrees. It might not all be the same, but varying degrees of respect. Like Ted Nugent's one. I mean, he's kind of a wacko, but he's been a big advocate for hunting, and he 100%. I mean, he's kind of like almost like the American Indian. Like there's like this spiritual mysticism of hunting and being one with nature and all that kind of stuff. And I know when Rogan talks about hunting, he's not like that, but he's very much like respectful. If you're going to do it, you put the beast down right away. I think he eats what he hunts. He doesn't like game hunt for putting stuff on the wall and that kind of stuff. But
well, and I had there's a guy that I knew growing up in Selma. I was like, we might be on a detour with our hunting conversation here, but he's a big game hunter. And his hunting is, he's a hunter that gets contracted out he gets contracted for over or invasive species or for different problems that exist out there. So like, for instance, he was contracted out to come out, and he's actually, so that's not his main job. His main job is he's from Selma, California. So he actually owns a raisin farm out there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But he gets contracted out for hunting, and one of his contracts was he had to go, and there was a pack of male lions, which is not good.
Yeah.
In Africa, in somewhere around Kenya, there was a pack of male lions that was going around, and so the government needed them culled because
it's probably where there's a great migration thing that happens through Kenya and a couple other African countries where like a huge amount of East African animals just all it's in Kenya near Nairobi. You can actually, one of the people on the board with that charity we've talked about, they've done it where they've actually gone out on a safari. They don't hunt anything, but they've done a safari where they go along when that migration is happening, which just seems wild to me.
Yeah. Well, and when he did it, so like for those of you that are listening and maybe you're more on the animal side, know that they have tried to rehabilitate, but when they get in that pack mindset, which would be considered a pride, but the way that lions work is that it's actually one male dominant, and then there's a bunch of females that work, and the females do all the hunting. The males just kind of chill because they just have sex all the time. So the males don't really do anything. The females are the ones that go out and hunt. But when you have these male packs, they just go out and they kill for fun. And so they end up and so there's damage to the ecosystem that ends up happening because these males are just they're not eating what they're hunting. They're just going and they're killing all of the shit.
So like human.
Yeah, exactly. So they're going, they're killing all this shit, and they're leaving it, and and it's affecting the ecosystem. It's kind of like a boys club kind of thing that's going on, and so they have to cull it. They did try rehabilitation.
Yeah, it sounds like men who aren't tied down by who aren't domesticated by marriage.
Yeah. And so he was contracted out to help cull, and they were able to successfully help out in that situation. There's just different things that you just don't realize as to how animals help ecosystems with what it is that they do. It's just kind of interesting. You should do some research on that, because and I know it seems weird that you're just, well, I don't think that you think that it's weird, but when we talk about being caretakers of this planet and we talk about conservationism, understand that there are things out there that have effects on how the world works in ways that we don't necessarily understand, or the majority of us don't understand, where it's like, yeah, so what's the big deal about that bird dying? Well, that bird ate this particular bug. That bug eats this particular plant, and this plant therefore grows into this, I was like, is a weed. That weed therefore, causes this situation or whatever. And we just don't really realize that kind of stuff. It's that kind of like food chain, food web, but just understand that everything in the animal kingdom has a place.
Yeah, we're supposed to manage it.
We are.
And managing it is not leaving it pristine and untouched.
Nope. I'm not saying
and it's also not just, it's for us to use and we can use it, and then we're going to lay waste to it and then just hope that nature will then fix it in 200 years and everything will be back.
Yep. And here's one of the fun things. If you're one of those California haters out there in the world, just know that if you hate California's politicians and all that kind of stuff, then you're hating the liberals out there, which we associate in our area as the San Francisco, Los Angeles area. But mainly San Francisco. Usually people around here are like, yeah, those people over in San Francisco. I was like, we would say Sacramento. We know that, but most of our legislature actually comes from San Francisco because of the gerrymandering that happened. And we have a bunch of representatives, but actually like only one represents the 400 stretch of miles and square miles of the Central Valley. But one thing that you should know about those San Francisco liberals is that where they get their water from is actually a dammed up national park, or what should be a national park. It's Hetch Hetchy. All of San Francisco gets its water from a Yosemite adjacent dam that there was and John Muir talks about it regularly, that he wanted them not to dam Hetch Hetchy, but they went and they dammed it up and they made it into water, and it runs into San Francisco. There's apparently a very gorgeous valley right next to Yosemite called Hetch Hetchy. That would be a fantastic park, but it's full of water that goes to San Francisco every single day. And so for all those environmental conservation, or not even conservationists, but all those environmentalists in San Francisco and all those liberals that are just like, yeah, we need to protect the Delta smelt.
Yeah.
And again, you may not know California's problems, but that's one of California's problems is the Delta smelt.
Los Angeles gets a lot of it from the Colorado River, which is not anywhere close.
Yeah. Los Angeles gets water that runs through from the Delta over by Sacramento that literally gets run all across the state and gets pumped over the
hill,
over the grapevine to go down into Brewing. But the Hetch Hetchy thing is kind of funny because I'm not even as much as an environmental. I do believe that Hetch Hetchy needed to happen in order for people to get water. I did. Again, what Tim was talking about, where it's like, it doesn't mean that everything has to be pristine. We just don't touch everything. And I am very grateful that we have the sequoias and that we have Yosemite National Valley.
Yeah.
That we have Zion National Park, that we have Yellowstone, that we have these beautiful places that are not being touched. I love that. I love it with all my heart. But I also understand that there are things where it's like, okay, we need to use some parts of this property to be able to help survive, to be able to help people survive, that kind of stuff, but also I don't mind us being, and that's why I say we're conservationists, where we can conserve, but it means that we're not purists or environmentalists where we just believe like, oh yeah, the whole environment gets to run rampant, whatever. But we do believe in conserving as much as we can of this world that was already here before us, which I hope that most people view for their.
Well, to take this to very specific Christianity, and this is what's so frustrating about the Genesis, first couple of chapters of Genesis is so frustrating. We want to have this argument over evolution versus creationism, and you're missing the whole point of what I think is probably is a myth. And the point of the myth is God's created everything. He's created man and woman. I tend to agree that he's created man and woman, and they're supposed to be engaged in relations, mainly because for most of humanity, modern romanticism didn't exist. Modern romanticism, as we know it, is a luxury of rich people. For most of us in the world, romanticism doesn't come into it. It's I'm trying to make babies and keep enough babies so I can keep my lineage going or have enough people. We view babies as a net negative. Most people in the world, for the vast majority of history, including most people today on the planet, view them as a positive for a variety of reasons. But I do believe that in this myth of Genesis, we are given this, I wouldn't call it a command necessarily. It's not a command that it's a command in that this is how God wants the world to work. And that command is God tells Adam and Eve, you're going to go out and it's your job to manage the earth. And I believe that's what we're called to do. And so many Christians, again, want to argue, American modern Christians want to argue about creationism and this and that and the other, and you miss the point of what's being discussed. And I can say that as being a politically conservative Christian my entire life, where you got an eye roll from about being an environmentalist. And I understand that environmentalists have kind of brought upon that derision.
Yeah.
But again, so many things in American life are too extremes and we can't have adult conversations.
Yeah.
And what Christians should have been saying is, I don't care about the politics of environmentalism. I don't care about the politics of absolute run-amok free capitalism either. The fact of the matter is, we are entrusted to manage this earth. It needs to be done well in a way where it serves the purpose of humans, which God did create in its image. And so therefore we are more important than the animals and things that walk the earth with us. But we're also to be healthy, respectful caretakers of that earth, whether it be the canyon we come across that's glorious or provides water to 1,000 square miles around it, or the animals and the other many creatures that are in there. And we can't it's been lost in so many, again, it's either one or the other. And meanwhile, I think the people, again, a lot of this is just people who frankly wouldn't know the front end and the back end of a gun. They try to load a shotgun as a front loader on the one hand, but also just conservatives who have no relation to the harsh, cold reality of living in a rural life. And I tend to find that the people who actually live in rural areas generally they understand the world they live in. They understand what it provides them. They understand the threat that it gives them. They understand all that. And too many times it's urban people who have no ties to the natural world because they live in a concrete asphalt kingdom that are trying to tell everybody else what to do. So we've gone way far afoul from Syria. I don't know.
No, but I mean, I think it goes back to the whole idea of, again, we have a responsibility, and it started in Genesis, bastards, where we have a responsibility for all things that live on this planet. And so, yes, I do agree with what Tim's saying, is that if you're going to make a priority over Israel versus Christians in Syria, please make a priority for the people that are a part of your tribe rather than this notion of just like protect the Holy Land.
We're a Judeo-Christian country.
Yeah, because that's just dumb. But at the same time, I also hope that if you're listening to this, you resonate or at least think about the idea of, yeah, we should be upset about some of these things. And I'm not sitting there and saying that we need to just have this idea of, and for some of you, you're just like, I can't solve all the world's problems. Yes, you are absolutely correct. And I appreciate that about you because, again, you're one of those doers out there that you are like, I need to do it. Okay, well, I can only do so much. Absolutely. I can only care so much about the other things. And so what does this look like in the contemporary set? What does this look like for my setting, Colton? What does this look like for me? And what I would say is, again, what Tim talked about when it comes to prayer. If there's something that's weighing heavy on your heart, please, by all means, pray about it. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in the world. But if there's something that weighs heavy on you, then by all means, pray about it. But then two, also have a conversation. When people bring these subjects up, have a conversation. Or maybe be like, hey, have you heard about this that's going on? That's what it looks like for us as Americans. Because, yeah, we don't experience the conflict firsthand. But the best thing that we can do is in our communities, continue to have conversations about what's going on in the world and how we want change. Because, again, that's what I said. We're at the first step where it's like we've identified the problem. And we're going to start praying about it. But then talk with other people and help other people identify the problems. And then we continue to find a solution and progress towards a solution moving forward. And pray that God enters that community or enters that moment. And I think that that's huge. And it seems small. But remember, like I said, it's one of those things that it's going to take years and years. I was like, that immediate gratification of solving the problem is causing decades and decades of violence afterwards.
That is a great point. I mean, I think that is a fantastic point. Of we want to solve the problem immediately, and what we do is only cause more problems. And so, a lot of Christians would say we need to go in there and we need to send the Second Marine Expeditionary Force to go in there and create a buffer zone between the Christians and the Hussits, which is impossible because the Christian community is intermixed, right? Just as a side note, there's a group of people in Lebanon and Syria. They might be in Jordan too. They're called the Druze. They're an ancient people. They're weird. They're weird in terms of their religion. It's like this hodgepodgey religion of like they take from everybody, and it's like they take some Muslim and they take some Zoroastrianism, which is a very, very old Persian religion that actually predates Christianity. They take Christianity. I've even read they've taken like Neapolitanism, which is not really a religious belief, but it is. It's a view of the world from Napoli, I believe, in Italy. Anyway, it's just this hodgepodge thing. But for whatever reason, they've always been as Apple would say, the geeks, the dweebs, the outsiders of the Middle East. And when Jews started coming back into Israel, Palestine, the Druze kind of sided with them because it was like, oh, now there's some other weirdos. People, there's another group of people that don't fit in here because the Muslims and the Christians have been here for 2,000 years. So anyway, the Israelis have always had a sweet spot for the Druze, and they protected them. In fact, they are the only non-Jewish class in Israel that is allowed to serve in the IDF. There's a large population of Druze in Lebanon, and Israel's either fought with them or the Druze have fought for them in Lebanon when Israel's been fighting in Lebanon, and apparently they've started getting attacked by the Syrian government in post-Civil War Syria, and this week Israel started bombing back in defense of the Druze. In fact, they even bombed the Syrian defense headquarters yesterday or the day before as a part of this. I have a little more cynical view. I mean, I do think that they have a soft spot for the Druze, but if you look where the Druze are, they're basically in a belt right along where the Golan Heights are. So they're basically the buffer between Golan, which Israel has taken, and I 100% believe they want to turn it into Israeli territory, and they're going to put houses there and everything else like they've done in parts of West Bank. I think they want to keep this Druze line of defense so that Muslims can't just come pouring over the border into this newly occupied part of the Golan, which I'm sure Israel now, I haven't seen. I'm sure officially they've declared part of Israel, but it hasn't been yet recognized by the international community. But I think that's the problem, is we want to solve the thing immediately. And so it's like, well, we need to save people now. We need to save Christians now, or we need to save non-Christians now. We need to save Israelis or just whoever. We have to solve the problem now, but we don't understand the generational Hatfield and McCoy problem that we're creating in order to do it.
Right.
Because violence at the end just breeds more violence and envy. And we tell ourselves we live in a fallen world, but don't really want to believe it. We tell ourselves, well, some of us have to die like Christ or get persecuted like Christ, but we don't really want to believe it. We want to solve the problem. Well, and I do believe you and I have been very open that we're not spiritual Christians. Well, that's our weakness. I certainly feel guilty about it. I don't know that anything's ever going to change unless I have some sort of like crisis in my life, or just, all right, I need to get serious about
road
this.
to Damascus.
Yeah, but
moment.
That doesn't mean we can't promote the ideal. And I do believe that if we had a moment where like the American church or just Christianity in the West or around the world decided we're going to fixate on this thing and we're going to pray about it for 40 days, I do believe in the Holy Spirit and the kingdom of God, that God would say, okay, my people have now banded together and asked me to do something, and I'm going to do some sort of miracle.
Well, and here's also the other thing. If you're a doer and you're the type that's, I got to do something about this.
Which unfortunately Americans are, I think, even more than any other society.
I agree. And which I don't have a problem with you being a doer, but your doing needs to focus on the community and the world that you are involved in, to where you need to sit there and say, what can I do to make sure that this type of shit doesn't happen in my neighborhood?
Right.
It doesn't happen on my street. Is there somebody that's, and not looking for Christians, because you're missing the message of what's going on there if you're just focusing on the Christian bit.
Yeah, don't help the widow who's a Christian just at your church. Help the lady who's on her third divorce and can't keep the lights on.
Yeah, it doesn't matter about what tribe or creed. Go watch. Yeah. Go look at the Good Samaritan story to view how to take care of things. Where it's not about how they treated you or what they do for you. It's about what you're doing for them. And if you're a doer, that's what you need to focus on. Where it's like, you're upset about what's going on in the world. I don't blame you. And so pray about that. Don't sit there and feel like, and I mean, this might be part of this kind of isolationist thing that our podcast has kind of been championing over the past 6 months. But again, it's this idea of,
it's not isolation.
Well, it's not isolationist, but it's this idea of there are problems on your own block, on your own street, that do have similarities or relations to the problems that are happening around the world. It's not something drastic, and as I don't have a problem using this word, but people are turned off by it. But actually I like it because it's provocative in that way. So it doesn't have the sex appeal as this story does, where you get to sit there and say, there's people dying, and so we can instantly help them and that kind of stuff. And, oh, look, we've solved this problem. You're right. The problems on your street do not have necessarily the sex appeal of that news story, but the life-changing effects that you are able to do on your block, in your neighborhood, in your community are far, far greater than what you are going to be able to do for Syria. And then through that, again, when we talk about these small baby steps, is the change. I mean, this was the idea behind Christianity in the first place, is that the changing of the communities that you are in and that you are surrounding then continue to spread and change slowly but surely out into the rest of the world. That's the idea. It's not this whole thing where it's like, I need to go and save this over there. And this is why we had our conversation last week where we talked about foreign missions versus what's on your doorstep, is those changes that you're able to make within those communities that you interact with on a regular basis are going to have a much larger lasting for those of you that are those active people, which I don't blame you for being, and I'm glad that you exist. But you're like, I got to do something. Again, take a deep breath and focus. And this is as somebody who has anxiety, let me tell you what they tell you to do. For people that are anxious about things that are going on elsewhere in the world, they say, take a deep breath and focus on the things that you can control. And these are the things that you can control, are the things that are within your environment and the things that you can take care of. And that's the shit that really matters. I mean, that shit matters too. I'm not going to take that away either. But yeah.
This is the problem. I think we've been trained to, you and I think current society right now, we have a hard time making absolute claims that aren't absolute, but they sound absolute.
The fucking Star Wars movies, dude.
I don't know what it is.
Only Sith stealing absolutes.
I mean, it's the kids, like...
I'm also not a huge Star Wars fan,
the
by the
kids 3 or 4 years below you and younger, they're really hard to listen to because you can't...
Careful, your son's in that age range.
Well, Jeff's a little different. I mean, just generally speaking, if you use the wrong term, there's always this clarification, and we do it even on the show because we've been around enough kids and engaged in the culture enough. This whole thing of like constantly like checking your language to be like, well, I don't really mean that, and I don't mean this, and just say what you mean. Stop. Don't worry about someone being offended.
I do that constantly, actually.
Well, you're around kids, so
I was like, it puts me in situations that I don't want to be in, and I feel bad. And other people are like, nobody thought that about you, and I was like, I know, but I just felt like I needed to say it because
I know,
I've grown
and
up with
because that's what the
experience.
culture is. I'm just trying not to say, and then it ends up like anyway.
It ends up making you look more like the dumbass than you are. I'm well aware.
I do think, I'm not saying judged in that one's going to hell or going to heaven. But I do believe, I do believe, and I'm saying this knowing that we're all guilty of this, but I do believe if Judgment Day is a list of our, as it's described in one of the scriptures, is, our list of sins are read out to us. I think that's in there. I don't think I read that in second book of Jude.
Hey, Jude.
I do think the modern world runs the risk. Those of us who live in the modern world run the risk of, here's all the things you cared about, and I'm going to show you very quickly a montage of the things that you walked right past and didn't do.
Well, and I think that helps us get to our second topic of the evening, which I don't feel like we have a lot to unpack on this topic.
Yeah, we'll do this and then we'll table MacArthur. I don't even know what we'll talk about.
I know we can talk. I don't know. Well, you might have a lot to say about MacArthur. I
think you and I need to talk about MacArthur off the air before we talk about him on the air.
I mean, I was just going to give him some reverence. Like,
the more I read, I was like, fuck that guy. But it was a mix. It was a mix. That's why I think maybe we don't talk about him, because it's a bit disrespectful after his death to talk about him. We've talked enough negative stuff. So, okay,
we'll get to MacArthur in a second.
We'll get to MacArthur in another episode, maybe. But topic number 2, and then we'll wrap
topic number 2.
This.
And I don't have like a ton to say on this, but again, this is just missing the point. And Americans again do the exact same thing, where it's this idea of, and maybe this isn't where you want to go with this, but it's again this idea of we dedicate more of our ideas to attribute more of our stuff to our American politics than we do to the actual teachings of Jesus Christ. And so what you end up having here is what we're talking about is there's a Christian group in South Korea that tried to get Bibles and rice to North Korea.
I still don't understand what they're doing. I guess the Bibles are in little tiny like microfiche kind of thing.
Yeah, they were just trying to get them to and South Korea now.
They're filling up plastic water bottles of rice. What was it? It says in here, rice. They use plastic water bottles, and then in other cases they use balloons to send Bibles, rice, and something else, and then they put them in the water and hope it floats. I think they know how the current works, and it goes up into North Korea, and someone's going to find it on it's a message in a bottle kind of thing.
Yeah, and so that's what they were hoping for, and they get arrested, and there's backlash from the church in South Korea about all this, and
rice, $1 bills, USB drives, and small Bibles. That's what it's, sorry.
Well, actually, and this is actually where it comes from. The reason why they were arrested and the reason why South Koreans' church were upset was on the USB drives was porn.
Yeah, I don't think Christianity Today didn't report on that.
Yeah, they were just like, oh, USB drives.
I have a specific problem with this article or this story, and I might, but as I read it more and contemplated on it, I might be wrong. So I'm willing to be told on this I'm wrong. But
well, I was
you talk.
All
about
I
it
was saying was that again, this is there's issues with, and is this the best way to reach people in North Korea? Well, I got to be honest. I really don't know. I don't know.
It doesn't seem like the best way for me, but it's also like,
yeah,
but it's also like, you know what? Try whatever.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure, whatever.
Well, let's preface. It is a group that the people who claim to be like the known groups in South Korea, they're not sure who these people are. In fact, at one point, an American running a group in South Korea is quoted in here saying like, I'm not even sure they're actually Korean or something, or like she's not even sure they're legit, like it's a hoax or something to get everybody into trouble. Okay, yeah. Whatever.
Whatever. At the end of the day, again, it's that idea of, and the South Korean church being upset about it is, okay, you've missed the plot. And I get it. I'm not in a conflict country. You know what I'm saying? Like South Korea, I can't imagine living in that country. My sister lived there for a year.
Your sister lived in
she lived in Seoul for a year.
Oh yeah, Seoul's wild. Like South Korea is weird, very compact.
Yeah, and
it's all like South Korea is like all just a couple big cities. It's just massive.
And she loved Seoul, which I mean, it's still up there as probably a place I wouldn't mind visiting or whatever. I don't know if I could live there a year. But
no.
Like
it's like if you live there, it's because you're in the military, you're in the Air Force or the Navy or whatever. But I don't think I've ever heard anyone be like, "Where'd you go?" Visited South Korea. Spent a week in Seoul. It was awesome.
But it's a country that lives in tension.
Yes,
they live in tension, and they still harbor, very much like the Chinese. They still harbor lots of animosity towards Japan.
Yep.
So there's a lot of they kind of view like there's this kind of double front, and even China is kind of this other because China supports North Korea, and so it's this, we are on an island by ourselves, and so they are kind of like an Israel of Asia, in a way, and so they have this particular mantra about how they do things. They do not associate with North Koreans whatsoever. They think that they are the enemy. They're despicable, whatever. Everything that the North Koreans believe about South Koreans, the South Koreans believe about North Koreans.
Correct.
They do. There are South Korean, and now I say that there are South Korean projects that are out there broadcasting whatever, but it's still kind of this, they are the heathens. We are the enlightened kind of mentality. And so what ends up happening through this process is they're just like, why would you do that? And so they get arrested for trying to communicate with North Koreans. And again, it's this idea of you've lost the plot of what it is that Jesus is doing. It's for all people. All people. Now, I was like, for those of you that are sitting there and saying that, there have been multiple Christians that have been arrested or detained because they're trying to reach the Aborigine tribes that are not associated with, or what are they're isolated tribes? Is that what what is the term? So and that's for their safety, where they try to go to these isolated tribes and that are cannibalistic or whatever, and they try to reach out to them.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would say, just spitballing here, a third of Africa,
South America still has quite a few.
Probably a quarter of South America, because South America is not that populated.
Yeah,
like we're mainly talking still a good part of, well, not a good part. There's a part of still of in the Amazon that is still like, stay away from. Like we don't understand how big Africa is because it's not a conspiracy theory. I'm not complaining about the maps we use. Maps are a context, but the maps that are used in the United States, and I believe in England as well, let's just say the West, are not representative because, again, it's not a conspiracy. You're trying to put a flat thing to represent a spherical thing. Yeah. And yes, you can call it racism. You can call it, I don't think it's racism. It's just, it's a hemispherism. We care about the Northern Hemisphere. We don't give a shit about the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
Africa is astonishingly large and is not represented at whatever the average map that you look at. It's probably twice that size.
Yeah.
It is, which is why I do believe that is the continent of origin of everything, including Adam and Eve probably is like not the Middle East, but somewhere in Africa. It is a massive, massive continent. And even South America is bigger than we think it is. So
it says in the Bible where they let out for the Garden of Eden over by the Tigris and the Euphrates.
Well, that's Iraq.
Is it?
It's Iraq.
I thought that's Mesopotamia. Is that not?
Yeah, Mesopotamia is Iraq and Iran.
Oh, I don't know. That's what everybody says is the cradle of humanity.
That's a good, yeah. So my problem with this story, there were two quotes that just kind of pissed me off. They were very American. So they're not quite sure who this group was, but I guess there's discussion that it was Americans who did it, right? Am I correct?
Yeah. It's Americans, I got it right.
They're Americans, but they weren't.
At least in this article.
They were Americans, but they weren't affiliated with any quote unquote known group in South Korea.
Yeah, no. So it made it seem like they were American tourists. It was kind of like, or American missionaries that are like, oh yeah, we're there.
So there's this person, Foley. I'm not going to find his, I think it's a he. So I'm not going to bother to find his name. Oh, maybe I will. Eric Foley. I don't mean to use it to like pick on the dude. He's doing the Lord's work. He's in charge of a group called Voice of the Martyrs Korea. Article notes Foley immediately he's talking about the incident that Colton talked about. Foley immediately recalled the June 20th. I'm reading from a Christianity Today article. Foley immediately recalled June 2020 when South Korean police charged him and his organization, Voice of the Martyrs Korea, for using balloons to send to North Korea. After an investigation, police ultimately decided not to pursue the charges against him. So a lot of this article is about how Christian NGOs are trying to navigate Korean policy and not piss off the South Korean government, how instances where that changes literally from one government to another because one's more conservative, one's more North Korea, and one's more pro-reconciliation. So I understand they're trying to navigate all this kind of stuff. But later down, Mr. Foley is the article says Foley prayed that God would prevent other foreign groups from copycat launch efforts. He fears their actions may lead to larger unintended consequences. Although the six Americans can leave South Korea, this instance may lead to greater scrutiny from government officials and greater public concern over the work that groups like VOMK, which is his group, do to serve North Korea, Foley said.
Yep.
That pissed me off.
Why, Tim?
It's not that I don't like the owner. You don't own what is going on in missions in North Korea, nor is any other group there. And making things difficult for you, again, if we want to really have this authentic Christianity, being persecuted and having to navigate, if not be arrested by governments, should be part of what is going on. Now, I don't mean it's not sinful for him to pray for that, and maybe that's just simply what that article meant. I like please, let's make this easy. But I took that the way I took it, and maybe Mr. Foley, I apologize if I'm misinterpreting, I'm inferring something that was not meant, and it's not an actually direct quote that's in the article. But if what you mean is, I don't want outside groups mucking up what I have, then you can go to hell. That's not my problem. It's not other groups' problems. You don't own what's going on in the Koreas and how to witness to North Koreans. As we mentioned in the last couple of episodes, the largest church in the world, at least as far as I know, still is in South Korea. There's plenty of Presbyterians in South Korea who can witness to North Korea if they want. I don't know if they need round eyes coming in to do it.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm misinterpreting that and reading into it of just him having a moment where he's telling the Christianity Today writer of, I'm just, I kind of hope these guys don't make things difficult for me. So I hope that's what it is. If this is a missions turf war, then like I said, you guys can go to hell. You're witnessing to one of the most odd xenophobic nations on the planet. I would say the most odd xenophobic nation on the planet. And you're existing in a country that's trying to get along with them, that's technically not at peace with them, that's just has there's no peace treaty between South Korea or armistice between South Korea and North Korea. Technically, there's still a war, I think. There's just a truce. And there's a lot of countries other than South Korea that seem to really want to go to war with North Korea for what I don't understand why. I mean, yes, I understand that it's a hellhole for the people who live there, but China doesn't want it because they don't want a bunch of North Koreans pouring over the border, causing trouble for them in whatever province that is. So I just... Mr. Foley wasn't the only person in this article that kind of gave off that vibe. There was also a female who was quoted from an NGO in South Korea, and she was kind of giving... There was a vibe from this article of, we don't need outsiders coming here and making our things more difficult. And sorry, no one put you in charge of outreach to North Korea.
Yeah.
And yes, while you may be in a country that has, still assuming, is the largest church in the world, and you have a healthy Presbyterian culture there, you have a government that's trying not to provoke the crazy fat man over the border, that doesn't mean somebody else who's just like, I don't really care about that. I just want, in this strange way of using old and new technology, I mean, putting USB and rice in a water bottle and then hoping it floats. I mean, there's something sort of romantic about it.
No.
I assume it's a Bible and some other things that's on the USB drive. It's also somewhat optimistic that the dude who's plucking the water bottle.
Bro, we already said it was porn. Come on.
I'm not going with that. The guy who plucks the water bottle off the coast of somewhere in North Korea, who finds the rice helpful, also has a computer to plug the USB drive in.
I like it.
But again, these are all fun things to make fun of. But I mean,
I like that.
Try something. Try
That's
anything.
Right. Try something. I agree.
Maybe it's just a bunch of college kids who read about this group doing it, and they said they wanted to do it on their own. I don't think Christianity should not be. I just, again, the vibe. I might be misreading or overreading what was said, but it seemed like. Would you agree that the vibe of the article was, we're professionals and we don't need people mucking this up?
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, we don't. I'm sorry. That's not what we don't need professional Christianity. Sorry. Criticize the message that's in the bottle. The message that's in the bottle. That's the episode of the. Even though we haven't spent much time talking about this, that is the title of the show. Message in a bottle. Criticize the message in the bottle, point out that the average North Korean doesn't need a half a cup of rice, like whatever. But, this thing of they didn't go through proper channels, that's not how Christianity should work. Christianity should be as unbureaucratic as possible.
Yeah.
And yes, 100%. Does a lack of bureaucracy create problems? Sure. You're going to go to a church where there's a crazy person preaching things that aren't in the Bible. And I trust each person who goes there to if they're actually listening to the Holy Spirit, be like, this guy's lost his screw and I'm not going to go here. We have a Jim Jones. That doesn't mean we have to then have some great bureaucracy that then ensures that people aren't learning from some wayward preacher who's got a bad gospel. Denominations in the United States have proven time and time again to be just as damaging in other ways as some crackpot preacher who's preaching some strange version of the gospel or some end times version of the gospel. So bureaucracy isn't the answer. At the end of the day, we just have to rely on a group of people listening to Jesus, listening to the Holy Spirit, and following through with that. And so if that mucks up the little organization you got going on in Seoul, South Korea, or Incheon, that's not my problem.
Nope.
Yeah. Am I contradicting myself when I say that? Because I criticize charities who tend to go in and try to fix people? No, I don't. No, I still stand by that. We can still criticize.
Attaboy.
We can still criticize. We can have our cake and eat it too. All right. We thank you for listening to this episode of the Go to Hell podcast.
Oh, you don't want to say anything about John Macarthur?
Well, I have an article about John Macarthur. It's very long.
I don't have an article about John Macarthur. I will say this. I don't agree with the way that he did things. But if we're being honest, I don't agree with the way that a lot of pastors do things.
Yeah, let's end on John Macarthur. I had specific things to say, but it's been said before, and I don't think it's healthy. I think it's bad form for me to point out a lot of bad things that he did. If you want to find out about John Macarthur, you can go on to ChristianityToday.com and look up John Macarthur, and you can read a 12-page article about all of John Macarthur's life. And I will leave out the negative stuff. The fact of the matter is he was a 4th or 5th generation pastor. His dad was pastor to Hollywood. The article that I read, he was pastor to Roy Rogers and other famous actor cowboys of the early mid-20th century. John took over a flailing church in Sun Valley, California, which is basically next to north of North Hollywood in San Fernando Valley, turned it into a mega church. And I don't agree with his flavor of the gospel, but John MacArthur's brought a lot more people to Christ than I have, and I got to admit that. And at the end of the day, he brought people to Christ. I don't agree. Again, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with a lot of the ways he ran his church. I don't agree with his reform view of Christianity. I don't agree with the meanness that came out of his mouth when he disagreed with people. But I also 100% believe that every day he got up and John had an ego like everybody else did.
I believe he believed that he was doing the right thing.
But I do believe he was getting up. Yeah, there's things you can read where like, okay, he had an ego and it got in his way. But I believe he was teaching when he got up and preached the gospel and he criticized other Christians for what he believed was a fake Christianity. I don't think it was meant out of meanness. I do believe he was taking from Scripture things that Jesus said, Peter said, Paul said, James said, to where you can't just mutter a prayer and that's it. That there is a transformation, and that transformation does come through a change in your life. And I think John tried to hold.
Which good for him, for the leader of a megachurch, and saying that out loud. Because when you become the leader of a megachurch, it's very much easier to just be like, oh yeah, you can just say a prayer.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's fixed.
Absolutely. My problem, if I criticize, and I told this to my buddy John, my high school buddy, when I saw MacArthur came up a couple weeks ago when I had lunch, the aforementioned lunch with my high school friends.
Yeah, because your buddy's a big MacArthurite, right?
He grew up in the church. He grew up in that church. His mom grew up in that church, and it's my understanding that his grandfather on his mom's side went to that Hollywood church that John's dad was.
Oh,
so
wow.
They were like second generation. It came up, and I said at lunch, that church is in trouble. And I got some looks, and I was like, look, you can't, when you have a church that's run by a figure, you can't tell me that you're going to have a problem. And I was asked to make it. Well, so what do you think is going to happen? I said, you want me to make a prediction? And they said, yes. And I said, whoever replaces him is going to fail. And if that church succeeds, it's going to be one or two pastors who fail before another guy takes over, because you can't. This is not a criticism of John MacArthur. This is a criticism of what we as humans do as Christians, where we fall in love with the preacher more than anything else.
Well, I mean,
and that doesn't mean I'm not talking about mega churches. I'm talking even at the church Colt and I refer to as the church before. We had a pastor there for 25 years.
Don't even refer to neighborhood church. Would you, if you didn't know Forrest was preaching, would you go? If you knew that Forrest wasn't going to preach the next Sunday, and you were just like, oh, it's just
no, yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying, like, yes,
no, I know,
we go for the man. Yes, we go for
yeah.
the man behind the pulpit.
Yeah.
Not because we believe in the mission and vision of that church. We actually go for the man behind the pulpit.
But I don't.
So when this man who's larger than life, who's listened to on 1,000 radio stations and has sold 2 million copies of books and study Bibles and all that, if you think that church that's existed in Sun Valley at the corner of Sherman Way and whatever is not going to have a huge problem. And oh, by the way, and this is to his credit, that wasn't mentioned in the article, and I wish it was, because this is to John's credit. There's a Hispanic church at Church on the Way.
Yeah.
Where they would call it, probably, I don't know if they'd literally use this word, but they'd basically call it like rescuing Hispanics from Catholicism. That church I think is outgrown the white church, which again, that is going to cause a problem. Now, that's not John's problem. In fact, this is all like to John's credit. John served. So all that to say, there's a lot of stuff John did. I don't agree with it. We had a whole episode where we've had several episodes where we've dealt with women and divorce and domestic abuse. John, I'm sorry, you flubbed that in a bad, very public way, and you deserved all the derision. He wouldn't say it was derision. I think that would be my other problem with John is John didn't ever seem to think. John never thought. John was too certain in what he thought the Lord wanted him to do, and I don't think there was enough introspection of I'm still human and I'm fallible, and my connection was off with the Holy Spirit. Again, all that to say though, he was a giant. I have 6 or 7 of his New Testament commentaries. I don't agree with everything that's in there, but I think it's, if you're someone who wants to know more about, if you want to get really in depth with your Christianity or understanding of the scripture, but you're not going to take everything that John Macarthur says, definitely buy one of his commentaries. I mean, he breaks everything down. He gets into the Greek. He gets into, so it is helpful. I mean, I use those things a lot when I was, because my best friend's mom worked at Grace to You. So she'd just be like, hey, what books are you using at the college group at your church? And I said, oh, maybe these 3 or 4. And I would just get sent books on behalf of the group. I wouldn't have to pay for them.
Well, and aren't you?
And it was very good at like getting, I would say, too into the weeds. But if you want to get really into the weeds, what the language says, yada, 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 so you can do a 40-minute sermon on one verse in the Bible, then John Macarthur's for you.
I'm pretty sure we said it on the podcast before, but like, let's say it right now. You are an ex-Macarthurite, right?
Yeah, I think there's about 5 years. There's about 5 years where I was a Macarthurite. I was not when I was in high school, not when I was in college. And then there was a period where I was trying to, I wouldn't say undo my childhood, because I've come to find out that my parents, to my parents' credit, not my credit, to my parents' credit, they made sure I was living in a Christian home. They laid out the gospel, but they didn't lay out a particular way of the gospel. And I would say what I found frustrating was a lot of the things that I assumed my parents believed, they didn't believe because they didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
And I found out after the fact, like, yeah, well, we didn't ever believe that. We're like, well, we went to that church, and that church is like, yeah, well, we went to that church because we agreed with a lot what was preaching, but we didn't agree with that. And I wouldn't say I was ever angry with my parents. It was never anger. It was just more like, well, hell's bells.
I was like, that's a really healthy way for your parents to perceive that. Good job.
So it was in the period where I was trying to figure out again, not that I'm a Christian. It wasn't a period where if you're someone who grows up in the church, you are going to have a period where you have to accept this is now your faith and take ownership of it.
100%.
I don't care if you, as Colton mentions, you can tell yourself that you went off to junior high camp and you decided to become a believer and you came back and got baptized. I'm sorry. Yes, some people I think are saved. Certainly if you were like younger than that. And I don't think churches, anyway. Just if you are an American, I'm going to make this a very American thing. If you are an American where we, more than anybody else, can make up our own mind, make up our own destiny in our minds.
Manifest destiny.
Not actual, but we can tell ourselves. We have more. Our freedom of choice is both a freedom and a burden, a slavery.
Oh, man, you've been watching The Death of a Salesman too much.
I haven't seen that in forever. All that to say, there is a time, not when you're in high school, when you're an adult, where you have to get serious about your faith and what you actually believe. And so it was during that period after Danique and I had married where I was trying to figure out, like, what do I actually believe? And I think I mentioned here before, myself and our mutual friend Brandon, who at some point we have to get on the show, we're both kind of like detailing politics from our faith and that kind of thing. The period right before that, yes, I was very much a Macarthurite. And I think we should have periods of Macarthurite. If this doesn't resonate with you, John Macarthur is very much a Reform Christian. It's it's modern Calvinism, and it is not only that, it is very much that Jesus is Lord.
Yeah.
And if you're like, well, yes, I've heard that before. No. This is like literally means like Jesus is Lord. You submit yourself to him in every single way. Yes, I've heard this. No. This is a thing that probably most evangelicals haven't heard. And if you don't understand the disconnect, it is a reformist would say, I felt something happens in their life, and they're going to look at it and say, well, that is Jesus the Lord making this happen or telling me this has got to happen, where you would say, well, this is just kind of how life happens. In fact, there's a quote in the Macarthur article about that. Anyway, I think there is a time, particularly as Americans, where we do need to go to this view because we've grown up in a democracy. We can buy whatever we want. We have 100 different cereals to buy at the cereal aisle. Colton and I have, well, it depends on the store we go to. We have 50 different beers we can choose from. There is a reconditioning that American Christians need to go through of, no, there's certain things we don't have a choice over. The kingdom of God, Jesus requires this of us no matter what. And we have to surrender ourselves to that.
Yeah.
And I think there's a time of life, or there's a conditioning that's where that's good. But I don't subscribe to MacArthurism. So, but John was certainly a giant. There was a bit in the Christianity Today obituary that I thought was good, where somebody said that critics and MacArthur spent a lot of time cross-talking and were actually saying the same things. Because a lot of MacArthur's critics said that he didn't actually believe in the Holy Spirit. He didn't believe that faith that works doesn't save you, and that he actually believed that works was part of it. And they would cite all the many things that MacArthur would say. It was like, you're not a Christian if you do not this. You're not a Christian if you don't do that. You're not a Christian if you don't do this. You're not a Christian if you don't. And so, I think that is where I ultimately kind of started reviling or repulsing from. I didn't find it repulsive, but just repulsing from reformism from John Macarthur and John Piper of Christianity being this thing, and if you're not doing this, then it's not a sign that you're a true Christian. And yes, it does start sounding like a works-based faith. And I would also say that, we have this very vague, ambiguous scripture from Paul where he says, why do I do the things that I do that I know I shouldn't be doing, but I keep doing over and over again? And we always struggle with, well, what is it that he was doing that he keeps doing? Because I think we want to find out what it is so we don't do it. And what we don't take from it is, I'm the dude who got blinded on the road to Damascus. I'm the second dude behind Peter that he asked to form his church around.
Yeah.
And I still do things that I know are sinful.
Yes.
And I think a lot of us read John Macarthur reformism Christianity as, no, you become a Christian and the Holy Spirit transforms you, and then you live this wonderful, pious, largely unsinful life, and the things that I'm sinful of are these things that are deep down in my brain, but they're not manifest, and I never do anything that's remotely close to the 10 Commandments and yada, yada, yada. And I just find that nonsense.
I agree.
But again, MacArthur was a giant. It's a loss. I hope his church, despite my differences with it, we're much better off. That article said at one point, I'm sure it's still the case, that is the largest church in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is kind of a broad term, but I wouldn't probably 10,000 people probably roll on that campus on a weekend. That's not nothing. He built that out of a church of 400 people, which also not nothing. But so I hope he does. I hope that ministry continues to thrive. I hope there's some reform with new blood and new people, and they take what John built and they soften some edges and
Well,
make
and
it.
I mean, Tim has more to say about MacArthur than I do. I do want to say that I'm grateful for his ministry. I'm sad to see him go.
Yeah.
I don't, as much as I disagree with him, nor do I want a, and I hope that I texted Tim immediately and I was just like, oh, what was cause of death? And he was just like, yeah, it was pretty much old age is what was.
He was 88 and he'd been sick for a while.
He was 88, in which I don't mind, like, it just, I don't want it to be something it would break my heart if it was something outside of that. I think that John Macarthur serves his purpose in his own way.
Absolutely.
In the same way that, as much as I despise his ministry, and I don't want to equate the two, and it might be insulting to the memory of MacArthur, but what's his name down in Houston?
Osteen.
Yeah, Osteen. Like, I feel bad for bringing them both up at the same time, but also at the same time, but what I am saying is that even if Joel Osteen died, I would not say bad things about him. I don't think that the way that he does, I would say bad things about the way that he conducted his ministry and the way that his father conducted his ministry and that kind of stuff. I don't think that that's right. I don't think that we should do that moving forward. And we look at it from the ministry perspective, but as for the person and for the heart behind it and what they believed in, what they were trying to do, I do believe that John Macarthur was not somebody who was vindictive, who had evil intentions or anything of that nature. I think that he was somebody who was trying to, and to be fair, I do think that he helped kind of push back against some things that were, he actually kind of resisted some of the Saddleback model,
absolutely,
which I push against on a regular basis, where he's just like, I'm going to talk about scripture. Like that's going to be my focus. I'm not going to talk about how to be a good father or whatever. He's like, I'm going to talk about scripture. That's what we're called as pastors to do.
And that's something I think we need to talk about next week, but we'll talk about
and we can talk about him more, but I do want to say after his death, I'm very grateful to the man and to his life that he served and the ministry that he served in, and I hope that he's partying it up in heaven. I'm very sad for the loss of John Macarthur, not because I was a fan of his ministry or anything like that. It's just simply, he was a man who had a heart for the Lord. And so it's very sad to see those people go, because he was somebody who was willing to work hard for the Lord. And I don't know if there's a lot of those people left out there. And so,
grateful. I mean, this is a guy I think who got up every day and
and also, just so we're clear, because I threw shade at Saddleback and I threw shade at Rick Warren for like the trillionth time on the show, but also I do believe that Rick Warren is one of those people, same as John Macarthur, who gets up every morning, same as John Macarthur, where it's like,
let's stipulate for the Lord. Let's just stipulate that
I was like, Tim goes after John Macarthur on the show. I go after Rick Warren on the show. That's just how it goes.
Well, if Danica ever joined us, she'd go after Rick Warren too. This is one of those perfect examples of strong opinions weakly held. I think weekly meaning strength, not recurrent.
Not every Tuesday. It's a Thursday, by the way.
Colton and I have criticisms of MacArthur and Rick Warren and Joel Osteen, a lot of people. But I would say I know Colton's heart and I know my heart is it's said with a certain strength of conviction, but it's also said with a certain strength of humility, a level of humility of John MacArthur. I don't think the gospel is one thing. And I think, we often lay out our view of the gospel. But I don't think the gospel is necessarily one thing. I think the gospel is malleable to the people who are hearing it. And I think at that particular this particular time at that corner in North County, Los Angeles, I think John Macarthur met a need of people who needed to be told, this is what the gospel is. It's unvarnished. It's unwavering. It doesn't compromise. It is this. And those people needed to hear that. And maybe other people needed to go to another church that had a softer edge to it or was different. And so I will say that is that I have enough humility to say, in the Holy Spirit's wisdom, John MacArthur's church is exactly what it needed to be. And 75 miles away south, Rick Warren's gospel is exactly what it needed to be. And they're
100%.
both the same gospel. They were just preached to different people who needed to hear different versions of it. And the gospel, again, is not one thing.
Yep.
Because I can tell you, the American gospel is not what's preached in Cameroon and the slums of Nairobi, Kenya, or in Beijing, China, or,
Seoul, Korea,
or Peru. And so who's to say that it's not in the United States too? And so John MacArthur, absolutely, I'm willing to say that man was a giant, served a lot of people. I mean, he was a pastor for 60 something years. That most people don't. That is something we should just, I'll wrap up really quickly about the fact that man effectively preached for that long is amazing. Your average pastor who gets into being a pastor, they don't exist that long. They burn out well before. And I think that's a testament to his commitment to the gospel. That commitment was that ironclad that the Holy Spirit kept him going, and he kept showing up day after day, pouring into people from age, I think what they say, 28 was the first time when he took that church over, to 88, 60 freaking years, and being effective. And yes, mistakes were made at that church. They didn't handle everything correctly. It's still a human endeavor. But to effectively preach the gospel to people who needed to hear it, good grief. I mean, that's, most of us, very few people do any job for 60 years, let alone preaching the gospel and everything that means. And so he was definitely a preacher, and he did it well, and cheers to him, and wherever he is in heaven right now. And I hope Grace Church continues to thrive, and I'm wrong, and they make their way through this time after this giant is no longer there. So
I agree.
You want to do our last beer?
Yeah, I was about to say, before we wrap it up, let's go over our last beer for the evening. We don't have anything to say about the brewer. We've already said everything that we have to say about them. This is Solo from Henhouse Brewing Company. If you don't know what we're talking about,
we're drinking occult juice right now.
Yep, but the beer still tastes fantastic, as it does every time.
Man, they do make a good beer.
They sacrificed a goat to make that taste so good. So there you go.
There was about a 20-30 minute period on our trip this weekend where I started to give in to the devil. And I was like, on our way up, we could pop into, because Nolan had to pick up he had rented camera gear, and it was in Petaluma.
Nice.
And I looked it up, and it was around the corner-ish.
Yeah.
From Henhouse. I was like, and he's never been to Henhouse, so he's never actually witnessed the occult things that go on there. And Nolan's like,
and you never know, they might have changed.
Nolan's like, you can go over there all you want. I'm just not going to spend any money. And we're like, we're going back and forth. And then Nolan goes, well, there is one in Nevada. I was like, well, maybe that's the Christian outpost. Who knows?
Who knows?
So instead, we skipped it. We went to Moonlight. I was like, no, we have to go to Moonlight. We can't go to Henhouse. But I did pick out some Henhouse at the Safeway, and it is spectacular.
Henhouse is just our ministry. It's our mission battlefield.
Correct.
That's what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. We thank you for listening to this episode of Go to Hell podcast. And
I forgot who you told to go to hell earlier. So
you told a lot of people to go to hell. I don't know. There's lots of people who go to hell.
The people that put 6 fucking Harry Potter books on the fucking list.
That's what I was thinking too. Really? I mean, it's Harry Potter. It's nice, but well, now you're talking about your wife, I guess.
Over 1984?
Well, no 1984, no. I mean, there's a lot of books. There's a lot of books you mentioned.
No Fahrenheit 451. No Mark Twain.
This is why I wanted per capita. I was hoping someone had figured out some kind of way to figure out per capita. But you have to be like, know what the population was for, like, there's no really way to do it. Well, actually you could, if you wanted to get like a PhD in economics, you could figure out a way, put in an algorithm. But like, I was like, I knew looking at that list, it was going to be like last 20 or 30 years, because even though book reading has declined, the population is also, I mean, the amount of, we've gone from 2 something in like 1990 to 360 now. I mean, our population has grown steadily, so we still read quite a lot.
It's actually, for those of you that are anti-TikTok, which I don't blame you for being anti-TikTok, but TikTok is responsible for the emergence of bookshops popping up everywhere. Is that actually BookTok has caused a resurgence in people reading books across the United States. And so there's been a higher interest in, and so as much hate as lots of people give TikTok, which I don't blame it, I am grateful to TikTok because there are people reading books again that never used to read books before. Largely a female audience, but at the same time, it's fantastic. We got a Barnes & Noble in Visalia that I didn't ever think that a bookstore was going to ever get there. So
I'm drawing out this episode even longer, but I got to do some very quick math on the fly here in order to tell somebody to go to hell.
Yeah.
So we have Harry Potter, Sorcerer's Stone, number 5, 107 million copies. Let's see, 107.
So that's the first. So the first one gets a number 5. Okay, that's good.
Harry Potter, number 13. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, 65.
Wow.
So we're at,
if I were to guess which one didn't make the list, that was going to be my guess because that's my least favorite of them.
So we're at 182.
Okay, so number 6 makes it.
Number 16, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, 60.
That's the number. That's the second book, and that's a that's a really good one.
So now we're at 284.
So that's 3.
17 is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of
Azkaban.
Yeah, it's 55.
Okay,
so
that's
280.
Wow, that's
295.
This is crazy because the Goblet of Fire is what I would think would be.
That's the next one. Also at 55 million, so 17, 18 tied. Goblet of Fire, 55 million.
That means that the Order of the Phoenix is the one that does.
I've lost count of my adding.
The Order of Phoenix is the one that doesn't make the list, and that's actually my favorite Harry Potter book.
107.
And now you're on to
107, 65.
And you need the 7th book. That's the last one that you
55.
Need. Wow.
55.
Phoenix. Order of the Phoenix goes behind.
Actually, there's 3 in a row at 55. There's Prisoner, Goblet of Fire, Order of Phoenix, 55.
Wait, Order of Phoenix is on there?
Yep. And
so
19,
all seven books made it?
And then Deathly Hallows is 20 at 50.
So wait, you counted 6 earlier, but that's all 7.
Yeah, well.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Sorcerer.
No, I have 6.
Sorcerer's Chambers, Prisoners, Goblet.
Yeah, all 7.
Phoenix, yeah, Half-Blood and Deathly Hallows.
4 or 5 beers. I'm not counting that up on my paper.
Wow, that's calculator. Crazy. All 7 books made the top 25. Shout out to Rowling.
Well, okay.
No, but wait. Here's the thing. I don't have a problem with saying that. I mean, this is going to be a bonus thing for the fucking episode. She did what people hadn't done in a long time. Is that she built a new world. It was something it's Star Wars. And that's the credit that I give Star Wars is Star Wars built a world. They built a if you don't believe that Star Wars isn't fantasy in fucking space, then you're fucking stupid. But Star Wars is fantasy in space. And so she did it. Tim's got to use the restroom. No, you're fine. I just was like, if you're waiting on bated breath for whatever. So she created a world that hadn't existed before. So it's like, okay, we're going to do witches and wizards, and we're going to create this whole kind of concept that goes around it. Because the majority of like D&D, that whole concept actually revolves around Lord of the Rings. So she did something that hadn't really been done since Star Wars, or it's something that's very rare, where they were able to create something that hadn't already existed. So, I mean, the idea of paladins, halflings, even space travel, light travel, all that stuff kind of exists outside of it. But for her to focus in on witches and wizards was something that hadn't existed before. And she and her witches and wizards wasn't like, I don't know, like Gandalf kind of wizards kind of stuff. No, it was more like Halloween witches and wizards. And that was something that just hadn't been explored before. And so she took it, created a world, created an environment, made rules, made boundaries, and all of a sudden she creates an instant bestseller. And because she did such amazing world building, she did a fantastic job, in my opinion. Even though people are like, she ripped the story off of this or ripped the story off of that.
No, everything's derivative. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. So I
Give me a break.
props to her. But
I mean, Lord of the Rings is derivative of Nordic and.
Oh yeah.
I mean, come on. I'll give her. You tell me if I'm wrong, because I've never read a book and I've never read a movie. It's not
you never wait, you haven't watched any of the movies?
No.
Wow.
I have no, and it is not because I think I'm superior. It's just, it's not been a thing for me.
Oh, okay.
But I have noticed, and maybe this is also because she closely holds the IP. It seems to me that she created such a great world that there's no open sourcing of the world. Like, the world is this.
Yeah, she created.
Whereas in Star Wars, George Lucas is still alive.
I love George.
Star Wars.
Rowling is also still alive, but also George.
No, but I'm saying, like, he's alive. Like, he could, like, he didn't create a world so complete that it wasn't. And of course, he's not writing books. He's doing movies.
Well, wait, hold on. Here's also the thing about George Lucas. For those of you that are Star Wars fans, which I don't, that's okay that you're a Star Wars fan. Again, I talked about earlier on the show that I was like, I'm not a big Star Wars fan. I like the Star Wars movies. I don't have a problem with them. And actually, I love saying that I'm not a Star Wars fan, because that means that I get to disassociate from all the Star Wars fans like Tim that really hate the last 3 movies, which is okay. I don't fuck the last 3 of the Skywalker
when you say
saga.
Your 7-year-old wrote the script,
I don't fucking care. I literally don't care. I go to see them for the same reason that I go and I watch the fucking Fast and Furious movies. I'm like, I'm not looking for a good plot. I'm just looking to watch whatever. Like, it's just an entertaining movie. That's all I'm here for. But yet, if you're out there being like, how the hell is fucking Leia surviving out in space, and you're questioning that, I'm like, I don't know. They're able to do space magic before this, so I don't know why this matters. So, and this is annoying Tim, but but I am going to say this, is that Lucas is one of the worst people to ever happen to Star Wars, and one of the best things to happen to Star Wars because he created it. But for a long time, and this is what pisses diehard Star Wars fans are, not necessarily Star Wars movies diehards, but Star Wars diehards that are like, they want to know everything about the worlds and all that kind of shit, is Lucas signed off on everything. Anytime anybody was like, hey, can we do this? He's like, sure. He's like, hey, can we do this? Sure. So there are shit tons of contradictory stories that exist out there in the Star Wars universe that piss people off because Lucas just literally was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And you can do whatever you want with the story. I don't care.
Yeah, because I don't think he intended to be a world creator.
No, I don't think he ever cared about that, and which is fine. But I'm saying that pisses people off. Rowling, on the other hand, is very airtight about her stuff, where it was like, all right, I'm going to create this world. I'm going to create everything that exists here, and I'm only going to confirm, and you're only allowed to do things within what I allow. To which she has allowed Dumbledore, one of the most favored characters, which was controversial for a time, allowed him to be a homosexual character. And he had no love interest, and that was kind of like a weird thing. It was like, okay, where did that come from?
Right.
I was like, she was Disney before Disney became Disney.
Yeah, but she also sold, what was my number? 450 million copies of books, and then sold the rights for every single one of those books. So she is the Michael Jordan of book authors right now. She's probably worth $2 billion. I'm going to guess.
She wrote a couple of other books under a different pen name because she had an ego question. She was like, is it the series? And is that the only reason that people read my book? And she found out that it was. So she wrote a different series under a different pen name. Nobody read it. And then she revealed that it was hers, and all of a sudden all of her fans came out and like bought it afterwards. And she was like, okay, this confirmed my thought.
Well, good for her.
And if you know her story, amazing for her. She was somebody who had to drop out of college. She was in a really abusive marriage, and she got divorced, and she was a single mom taking care of a solo. It's almost kind of like Rocky.
Yeah.
If you know Sylvester Stallone's story about it's almost like that, but single mom in Great Britain.
Yes, but it's also it's an interesting experiment she tried, but it's also like, yeah, I mean, people buy Dan Brown books because they know what they're going to get. They bought Tom Clancy books because they knew what they're going to get. They bought Anne Rice books because they knew what they're going to get. They bought Agatha Christie books because they knew what they were going to get. They bought John Grisham books because they knew we were going to get a book about a lawyer in the South somewhere doing something. And so she shouldn't feel bad about selling, what was it again, 450 million books
right.
on 7 copies, and then selling the rights to all of them to $2 billion, to where she can now, she's got literally FU money, and she can tell everyone, yeah, I made one of my characters gay, but I also believe in male-female genders, and anybody who says otherwise is a fucking lunatic.
Nope. Yeah, well, Tim is well versed in Rowling's.
She's been very
social media.
She's been very. Oh, no, it's not just social media, but and good to her.
She is extremely active on social media.
She's been very much like, no, there are females and males, and that's it. Yeah. And then sexuality is a thing, but no, we're not. There's a limit to what we go to. Now, part of that is because she's got FU money.
Well, but she was she was considered a champion for the left for the longest time because of that kind of mentality.
And she is a lefty. And that's what the problem is.
But she said what she said, what you just referenced, and all of a sudden they were like, whoa, okay, well, correct. Never mind.
Which is dumb.
Yeah.
She's still a lefty. She probably doesn't I don't agree with her probably on most things, but
and she's probably
her courage, she stood up and said, no, this is too far for me.
She's probably more like lefty in European standards.
Correct, which is a whole other
thing. Yeah.
Social welfare kind of thing.
Yeah.
Particularly someone who was a single mom or whatever she was at one point.
And for those of you that don't know, Europeans left versus right, conservative versus liberal they agree on some things, but actually on other things, they're flip-flopped across the aisle from what Americans...
this is a common mistake America makes is, it's left and right. And like, no. Like,
yeah.
Like
we do that. We've said liberal and conservative.
We've talked about Israel quite a bit the last couple episodes, like the left and the right. And there was a long time misconception, and that's different today, but a long time it was right and left in Israel, and it was assumed like Reagan conservatism versus Walter Mondale leftism or democratism. And the fact of the matter is, first 2 or 3 generations of Israel were all basically socialists. So even the right was some version of socialism in Israel. It's just they had a more bellicose, hawkish view of how to defend Israel than the other side did, or slightly less socialism than the left was. But we were always like, it's left and right. No, it's not that way. All right, back to do whatever. But you can.
Hey, don't put 7 Harry Potter books over 1984 and go to hell.
Yes.
Or, Moby Dick, Grapes of Wrath. Hell, The fucking Outsiders, dude.
So maybe next week we'll do our list of books it should have been on that more Americans should read.
Stay golden, Pony Boy.
Said Matt Dillon.